Good morning. Thank you for being here. The mayor and the chief would like to discuss some changes to the body-worn camera policy. We'll start with brief remarks from Mayor Hodges, move on to Chief Arredondo, and then open it up for questions related to body camera policy. Mayor Hodges.
It has been a tough 10 days. It has been a tough 10 days for the city, and particularly for Justine Damon's family. One of the toughest things that all of us in Minneapolis have had to face is that after the time and the money and the energy that we put into making sure that body cameras were in place, we did not have body camera footage in an incident where it mattered a great deal. And from the start, it has been my expectation that our body camera program work for our city and work for our people. It was my expectation then, and it remains my expectation today, that the program actually does what we want, expect, and need it to do, that MPD monitor closely to ensure that it does. Because we know body cameras are an important tool for public safety and public trust. And we know that they are also not an infallible tool. Which is why last week I clearly articulated that my expectations for body cameras, both the policy that governs their use and the training that our officers receive to use them according to that policy, I articulated those expectations. And changes to the MPD body camera policy have been in the works for some time. Clarifications to that policy have been in work for some time, already contemplated before the tragic shooting death of Justine Damon on the night of July 15th. All policies are living, breathing documents. They are never set in stone, nor should they be. This is especially true of the department's body-worn camera policy, given the recent implementation of the policy in the last 8 months. Future policy changes beyond the ones we're going to talk about here today will be considered given the audit being discussed by the council today. They will be considered in that context. I also know that Governor Dayton has said that he is considering an examination of the state statute governing body cameras, and we are interested in the same, and we will work with Governor Dayton and our state legislative delegation, other state leaders, and stakeholders on that policy moving forward. But today we're here to talk about clarifications and changes to the policy that are what we can do today inside existing law and given technology as it exists today. So to go over what those changes are, Acting Chief Arredondo.
Good morning, everyone. Madera Arredondo, Chief of the Minneapolis Police Department. What good is a camera if it is not being used when it may be needed the most? From this day forward in the Minneapolis Police Department, we want to add strength to our expectations. Body-worn cameras must be on. This policy change will become active in 3 days, which requires officers to turn on their cameras when dispatched to any call or any self-initiated activity. I'm clarifying intent in the policy so officers know it is required to activate their body-worn cameras. We're putting clear in policy the range of discipline, but we are also making it clear that it has always been true that the full range of discipline was available and existed. This month we have been training our supervisors to conduct auditing of their officers' body-worn cameras. This supervisor audit training has helped to shape, strengthen, and clarify our policy. We are not passing judgment on a single officer, nor are we looking at a single event. We are responding to our communities and to recent ongoing assessment. I can tell you this policy enhancement has been in process for a few months now. And it also should be noted that many of our officers are using their cameras a lot, and as they're intended to be used. But there are some officers, quite frankly, that are not using them nearly enough. We're merely 8 months into our full body camera rollout of the Minneapolis Police Department. New equipment takes some time to get used to. We saw that when we outfitted our squad car cameras several years ago. We sought community input when we drafted this body camera policy. And we were clear in stating that this body-worn camera policy was subject to change. All policies within the Minneapolis Police Department are subject to change as police work constantly evolves. This may not be the last change to our body-worn camera policy. It may not be the last change this month, as a work group has been formed to move forward in looking at our body-worn camera policy. The point is the cameras help give everyone a clearer picture of an event. We want our body cameras to accurately depict an event no matter what the circumstances are, for the sake of our officers, and for the sake of our community. Thank you.
We'll take questions now on body camera policy.
Acting Chief Rondo, do you get a sense that officers, I know this is something that just has been rolled out gradually over the last year, but do you have a sense that officers have just been trying to keep them on only in the narrowest of situations that they've been thinking about the policy, maybe not clear, maybe they're just trying to be as, keep it narrow as to not have too much footage?
I think it's probably a combination of two things. I think one, again, our entire department, in terms of it fully being outfitted with body cameras, it's only been 8 months, so it has been a short time. This is certainly new technology, but as far as why some officers are utilizing them more frequently than others, we're hoping that the supervisor auditing team will be able to give us some more concrete facts to that. But one thing I am responsible for is making sure that our policies are clear, and I wanted to make sure this particular policy is very clear in what the expectations are that I have for our officers to activate these body-worn cameras.
So, Chief, the new policy is essentially that they need to have them on almost all the time?
There are still instances where they will have some discretion, but we have over 500,000 911 dispatch calls a year. This policy clearly states for those dispatched calls or self-initiated activity, those body-worn cameras will be activated.
At what point do they have to turn them on?
The policy, I'm sorry, did you say turn them on or off?
Turn them on, sir.
Oh, turn them on. So on any dispatch calls, any self-initiated activity, any traffic stops, when they're encountering any adversarial situation that could arise, any criminal when you receive the policy later, it will specify and outline very clear when those body-worn cameras should be activated.
And Chief, just remind us, is it a quick button touch?
That is correct. Yes.
What other repercussions is that on in a dispatch?
So one of the things that this policy we wanted to make sure it was very clear is that the discipline category range is specified. Category B through D, which at the lowest threshold, category B, is a 10-hour suspension, and category D is anything up to and including termination. We wanted to at least, once again, that had always been there, but I want to be very clear and intentional in terms of what that discipline range is.
The body cameras that you have now, are they capable of being turned on automatically?
No, my understanding is they still have to manually activate those.
And is that something that you're looking into?
We are certainly having conversations about some new evolving technology that we think will help us down the road here. Yes.
Can the city purchase some of the signal technology, and where would that be at this point? Has it been installed? Is it not?
You know, I may rely on my Deputy Chief Joe's here in terms of the technology. I don't get running chip.
Hello, I'm Inspector Jose. Yes, we have purchased the auto activation technology, and it's in the process of being installed in the squads right at this time.
Would that be across all squads?
Yes.
And to be clear, this is the technology where if the officer opens the door or something, it can trigger,
It'll be initially set up the same as our squad cameras are, where when you activate the lights on the car, it will activate the body cameras for you. You will not be required to push the button, which you hold down the button for a couple seconds, and that's how it activates. This will automatically activate it, but we have to get it installed in all the squads first before we turn it on, and so you know what kind of vehicle you're getting into, you know what's happening.
The number of hours that officers were downloaded per month, 5 to 6 hours.
I think that we actually need to get a more full, robust, comprehensive look at that. I think it's just too early to make any sort of decisions. There's a lot of other contextual things that go into that. Not all precincts are the same. Some precincts are busier. Call loads vary from precincts. So I don't have enough information yet to really make an answer on that. So.
When does this new policy take effect? Is it as of this moment, later today, later this month?
This policy will be signed by me shortly, and it'll take effect 3 days from now. So it'll take effect Saturday. Yes.
You all deal with capacity issues.
Yeah.
Now that you're going to have more officers recording video, do you physically have the storage capability for all of this extra data that you're going to be recording?
So we will be working closely with our IT representatives within the city, monitoring that. Obviously, Mayor Hodges me and her will be having conversations as we start to get more information as the volume of use increases. So we'll be monitoring that, absolutely.
When can we expect the pilot program to be running? You've got some officers that have it, some don't. When do you expect everybody to walk out the door and got the cameras?
Well, all of our patrol officers have the body cameras now. I mean, so we've had an 8-month rollout, so they have them. Yes, now that's been in place. Yes.
What's the timeline for the technology to be activated?
We're working with our fleet department right now to get the technology installed in the squads, and it's a couple hours per squad, and we have roughly 200 squads. So it'll probably be a couple of months before we get every squad with the technology installed. And as far as the answer to the storage, we have unlimited storage for each device. The issue is more of a technology with the individual device, how much it can store itself before being downloaded, and battery capacity and those types of things. And we'll learn more about that as we have more video being recorded.
Will policy stay the same when releasing video? Or will that change?
I'm sorry.
When releasing video?
Oh.
That's governed by
Yep.
state law.
Yep, that'll stay the same, and that's governed by our state statute.
Discipline could be up to termination. Does that mean the officer Moore could be fired for violating the policy?
I will not be commenting on that any particular singular event. Certainly, when we first started our body-worn camera policy, we had very robust discussions with our union representatives. And certainly we continue to have discussions with them. I've had discussions personally with the union president. So it made him aware that these changes are coming, and we'll continue to have those conversations. Yeah. You know, with any policy that impacts all of our stakeholders, I want to make sure I'm listening to as many voices as possible, so that will continue to happen.
A couple of months ago, Axon offered to increase buffer times prior to reporting was captured on the video from 30 seconds up to 2 minutes. Is this something that's being looked at as well? Would you increase that buffer time that's been discussed?
At this point, we're still looking at all the technology and all the options, and we haven't moved in the direction of increasing that buffer time. Right now, our buffer time is 30 seconds, and that's consistent with both the squad camera and the Axon camera.
Shortly after the shooting, the head of the PCOC came out and was pretty critical of the department. As you know, that body came out with a report, and that was one of the recommendations. It said that at the time, the police department ignored that recommendation, gave officers more discretion. So what prompted this change?
I think that we've always constantly been looking at how we strengthen this. We rolled our body cameras out in phases, each individual precinct. By the time we actually had it fully implemented throughout the department, that gave us a little benchmark in terms of what we could look at were the strengths, what we could look at were the weaknesses. I've had and continue to have conversations with PCOC chair, and have sought her input as well, and we'll continue to seek some input and recommendations from the PCOC. But I think the goal is the same. I think we all want this tool to better help serve our community and our officers.
Chief, a quick question, maybe more anecdotally over the first 8 months of the body camera policy. We saw at the release, they're become public in that dog do we know, has any of the video been used in any disciplinary proceedings already against police? Has it been an effective tool in looking at complaints from citizens?
Yes, we certainly, since our body-worn camera policy, and excuse me, our equipment has been implemented, yes, we have used the body-worn camera as evidence in complaints, and we've looked at it, certainly, yeah.
And then just on the back end of sort of being dispatched, when will the officer have the authority to then shut off their body camera?
Yes, so there's still, once you get the policy again, there will still be, in terms of the deactivation process, there will still be places and spaces in there where the officers can deactivate. So once you receive our policy, you'll be able to clearly see the deactivation elements and timelines when they can do that. So.
Will you actually be able to look at the video and possibly delete it themselves? Are you just trusting the officer to do that, or are there any safeguards in place to prevent that from happening?
Yes, there are safeguards in place, and so officers cannot delete the video of the body-worn camera. We need to build and regain our community's trust. And that is my charge, and I've expressed that to all of our officers. And body-worn cameras is a tool. It's not everything, it's only a tool. But as I've told all of our officers, we equip them with a lot of equipment to go out there and serve our communities, but the one thing we cannot equip them with is the benefit of the doubt. And they have to gain that through their relationships with our community. And so that's what my goal is.
So I know you don't want to talk about particular cases, but if an officer, responds to a scene and someone is shot, how does that fall in between these categories B and D? Like, is there some kind of criteria that if someone ends up shot and the body camera is not on, that it's a B or a C or a D?
Well, there's a wide range of circumstances and situations officers could respond to. And so every case, we judge it on its own particular merit. So that's why we have the range of categories that we do. So, yeah.
We have time for one more question.
Chief, about the audit, can you give us a sense of what that's going to entail, how officers use the cameras to be audited?
Obviously, you can tell any technology questions. I would defer to Deputy Chief Joe, so maybe you can.
There's probably some confusion as to when you say audit. One of the ways of auditing is individual supervisors checking their employees to see if they're using it properly. So that's one process we've been implementing in the last couple of months, is training supervisors to review video of their employees to make sure they're using it properly. The other term for audit is an overall audit of the system as a whole, to audit policy, recordings, activations, are they in line with policy? And that's a separate audit that is going to take place in the near future with the city's audit department.
And last question.
The Civil Rights Department audit that we're talking about this afternoon. That will okay.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I do have copies of the policy for you guys.
Hey guys, so we're in the newsroom here at Fox 5 Live, and you just watched, we opened the show there with that press conference in Minneapolis. So if you're new, guys, welcome to the show. Wanted to make sure we took that live right away. They're updating, they're changing their policy on police body cams. This comes after that story that we brought to you guys last week, when the Australian woman who was unarmed, who called police about a sexual assault, was then shot by officers. And it seems to me police are pretty much admitting, hey, we got to change this up.
Yeah, I mean, they changed the policy to, as far as I could tell, essentially make it so that they would always be on. They, outside of some specific circumstances, they're pretty much every time that they respond to a call, they're going to turn them on, because they just don't want to miss anything else. Before it was much more kind of discretionary, I think, with like more specific times. But I think that they realized that, so often when you're in like kind of that chaotic situation of being out in the field as a police officer, you don't have time to think like, okay, now I need to turn my body cam on. Like you're dealing with the situation at hand in a much more kind of rapid way than that. So
you gotta have them just constantly on.
Yeah,
so that you
constantly on, which and I think it's a good idea. I mean, they did mention there are some potential difficulties as far as just the actual physical like space on the camera, the battery of the camera.
Right.
So we'll see if any kind of complications arise with that issue. But I think that this is a good step, and I think it'll make strides towards kind of improving the situation.
Yeah, definitely. The chief of police there in Minneapolis already said this woman's death should not have happened. So that was sort of a big statement there from them. Obviously, they couldn't really get enough info because of the body cam situation. So just a live update there for you guys in Minneapolis. We are in the Washington, D.C. newsroom, guys, at local Channel 5 here in D.C., and we're going to bring you live sources from all over the country and the world, including this. Check this out. Wildfires in southern France, I think we're being told. Just getting this in now. Check it out, that footage from APTN, our international source over there. So we're going to be just bringing you all the live sources so you can check into what's happening currently in the world. This is pretty amazing. We get this in from time to time, you know, wildfires and flooding and natural sort of disasters.
Yeah, different types of natural stuff.
And
there's a lot of people still hanging out right there.
I know. Wow, look at that wide shot. That is interesting.
I kind of figured they maybe would have like evacuated the area or something.
Yeah, trying to get a little more information on where exactly this is there, but definitely looks European to me. Guys, bringing it back into the newsroom, a lot of different topics today, right? We sort of left you guys yesterday, if you were joining us, with Senator McCain. He was coming back to the Hill. Made sort of a dramatic, rousing speech on the Senate floor. That happened a little bit later, so we didn't have it on our show, but we took it live to Facebook. But it's getting a little controversy, of course. McCain coming back to be one of the deciding votes to move, to push the healthcare debate on and to push the vote on for next week as the debate kind of continues today, even on the Senate floor. But he made a speech that was sort of calling for bipartisanship and a little more neutral, and other people are saying, well, you came back for this vote, you're really one-sided. So it's getting a little controversy.
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't get a chance to see the whole thing yet, but I did see one line. He says basically, like, you know, I realize that this bill is, you know, like, we're pushing it through right now, but it's obviously not bipartisan.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to talk about bipartisanship, then let's actually do it, basically. You know, which obviously is a great sentiment. You know, I hope it happens. I hope that there actually is some semblance of bipartisanship, which is seemingly non-existent at this point.
Right.
But
yeah, exactly.
But I think that a lot of people, especially Republicans, really wanted him to come back and kind of, you know, like hammer home that right-wing kind of side of things, and maybe, you know, really stand up for the bill. And he didn't do that. He didn't. He definitely.
So he didn't really go on either one side.
Yeah, I mean,
which is very him, I think.
he kind of you know, was just like I'll vote for it. I mean, it's a Republican bill. I'll vote for it. But
yeah,
like it still needs improvement. I think is what is kind of his thought process.
Yeah. And guys, meanwhile, this is continuing on, these wildfires in southern France. We're hearing. Meanwhile, the debate continues on the Senate floor. We have some footage of that coming in a little bit. We can throw it over there. Rand Paul was just on the Senate floor speaking. He was just live moments ago. Looks like he has stepped away for now. We'll bring you over to the Senate floor in a little bit. But just, you know, there's a bunch of news of the day today that we're kind of looking at and seeing what comes in here in D.C. Sports related. We got to show you guys this. There's a International Champions Cup game tonight. Barcelona, Manchester United at FedEx Field. So that's the Redskins Stadium field. And Mayor Bowser just like less than an hour ago had a little press conference, little speech sort of related to this. So we're going to play that out in a second. But are you anything else to add about the soccer?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of excited for it. I mean, it is just preseason, so you know, it's not obviously the games don't like really mean anything. But anytime that you get two of, you know, definitely the world powerhouses, you know, two of probably the biggest three clubs in the world, you know, not counting Real Madrid probably, playing each other, even if it is in the preseason, like that matters. There is some kind of bragging rights there. You know, just between the fan bases, which are obviously huge and expansive, and you know, for people in the U.S. who don't get to see that level of soccer on a regular basis, obviously the MLS and the U.S. national team are not quite on that level. You know, to get to see players like Lionel Messi, who's one of the best of ever, and like Neymar, Luis Suarez, Paul Pogba. That's just really cool for us. I think on this side of the pond to be able to see that level of play. So that's big for us, I think.
Yeah, it is exciting. If any of you guys are fans or have any thoughts or comments, don't forget to chat along with us here on the stream. We're still bringing you this live coverage of the wildfires, but we're going to go over to that video from earlier just to keep it sort of relevant what we're talking about. The mayor of D.C., Mayor Muriel Bowser, speaking about this cool event tonight. So let's go over there. We're keeping an eye on our other sources, keeping an eye on the Senate floor to see what comes in there as the debate continues today. This is also so gorgeous over there in Europe, this live feed over there, even though they are going through that wildfire disaster. Yeah, guys, let me know where you're watching from and what you think. If you have any thoughts or comments or questions, we're here for you guys through the afternoon on our YouTube stream. So happy to be here. Molly, Nevola, and intern Cam. Yeah, let's check in with that video from earlier about the match tonight. Check it out.
Hello? Hello? We're going to get started in just a minute, so if you can just finish up your conversations. I'll give everyone about a minute. Well, hello. Isn't this exciting? Let's do a round of applause for this partnership. For those of you who don't know, my name is Diana Parenti, and I'm the Executive Director of the District of Columbia Interscholastic Athletic Association. The District of Columbia Public Schools and the DCIAA are proud to welcome everybody here today at this amazing announcement as we celebrate our partnership with the historic football club, FC Barcelona. This partnership will result in countless opportunities for the students of DCPS, many of whom you see in this room currently right now. Let's give a round of applause for our students. Any educator in the room would confirm that when a district, a school, or a teacher prioritize social and emotional learning and athletics, you will find success. It has been great to work with a partner who values that exact statement and then cultivated a partnership and a program that does just that in FootballNet. FootballNet is currently implemented in 50 countries around the world, and we're happy as the United States to accept it as its 51st. FootballNet is currently, should have written my speech down. So, with that being said, next summer, FootballNet launches in our DCIAA Summer Skills Program. Our students will not only prosper on the soccer field, but also off the soccer field. Before we move on, there are a lot of people here that I would like to thank. First, I obviously would like to thank our FC Barcelona for being here today and providing our kids with this amazing opportunity. I would like to thank our Mayor, Muriel Bowser, and Chancellor Anton Wilson for prioritizing athletics. I would also like to thank our DCPS Central Office team, who, with countless emails, conversations, figuring out the logistics of this event, creating our MOU, and creating up all the beautiful things that you see here today, this opportunity would not have been possible either. And lastly, most importantly, I would like to thank my DCIAA staff, whose commitment to excellence and drive to ensure our students receive the best inspire me every single day. Without further ado, I would like to announce our mayor, Muriel Bowser, to take us through the rest of the program. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Roosevelt Senior High School, the home of the Rough Riders. It is good to be here, and I, too, want to acknowledge Chancellor Antoine Wilson, who in a few short months, he told me when I appointed him on February the 1st, when his first day at work, that he would go to every D.C. public school before the end of the year. How we do, Chancellor? All done. So give Chancellor Wilson a big round of applause. I also want to acknowledge our wonderful principal, Akila James. Stand up, principal, so everybody can get to meet you. Principal James has risen your second year at Roosevelt, correct? And also the McFarland Middle School that is now under construction. Yes. And we're going to welcome students back to the new McFarland just as soon as we are complete. But this campus alone shows a fantastic commitment to public education in Washington, D.C. And the reason we do all of this is for our fantastic students. And I understand that we have students, soccer players from all over DCPS with us. So give them a big round of applause. So today we're going to announce a fantastic partnership with DC Public Schools and Football Club Barcelona. And it's not bad when you can come to work with these fine gentlemen behind you. So let's hear it for Team Barcelona. And I want to thank you, Jordi Cardener from FC Barcelona, for being with us today. And I will say that Jordi said to me, this is a fantastic school you have here, Mayor. And it demonstrates, it really shows your commitment to public education in your city. So I want to give them a special shout out for joining us here in Washington, D.C. And it is really a pleasure for us to have one of the most widely followed soccer teams in the entire world right here in Washington, D.C. We recognize the importance of sport in the development of children, and we recognize having a robust set of sports offerings and facilities and coaches teaches our young people fitness and discipline and teamwork. And we know that all of those skills will help them live rich and successful lives. Some of them will go on to be professional soccer players, football for Barcelona. Others will be doctors, lawyers, police officers, and they'll find their own niche. But the lessons they learn in sport right here at DCPS are valuable principles that will carry them through their lives. My administration has made investments in this partnership. Earlier this year, I announced a $6.2 million investment in our middle and high school grades. And these investments will help us continue to engage more students in extracurricular activities, develop new athletic programs from wrestling to lacrosse to archery and rugby, and help us to create computer coding clubs in every middle school in Washington, D.C. So we know that this will help our students stay engaged and stay involved and make sure that they are attending school every single day. Our new partnership with FC Barcelona will help us do exactly that. We know that our students learn critical skills ranging from communication to conflict resolution, as well as showing off and honing their soccer skills. This program, we're also very happy to say, will have a synergy with our new program for girls in DCPS called RAIN. They'll travel to Barcelona next year to receive additional training, play against other girls in Barcelona, and tour the FC Barcelona soccer stadium. I may have to sign up for this. Good. This partnership is yet another way to transform our school experiences. I was full grown and in college before I ever got to travel to Spain. And now our students will be able to do it in middle school. I'm so proud of these opportunities and cannot wait to see how they grow. And so I now would like to join in all of you in welcoming our fantastic Chancellor of Schools, Antoine Wilson.
Good morning. Extremely excited to be back here at Roosevelt High School and also Roosevelt Stay. Just want to say welcome to everyone and thank you, Roosevelt High School, for hosting. Principal James, thank you. It's so awesome to be back here at your amazing school. Appreciate you for your leadership, all of your fine faculty and staff and partners and amazing students. Also, I'm very proud to say that the DC Public Schools, we are beginning a partnership, as was mentioned, with FC Barcelona. And this is an amazing organization with a strong commitment to supporting youth around the world. I'm extremely excited because we are establishing this partnership that focused on the world's #1 sport. Think about the most popular sport in the world, and to have such a partnership here in DCPS speaks to the ambition that we have for all our students, that we want them to be exposed to the best that the world has to offer. So thank you to Diana Parente and the DCIAA team. I appreciate you and your leadership. You shared this with me maybe just a month and a half, 2 months ago, and to be able to bring this to fruition so quickly, just appreciate you. I want to appreciate the mayor. The mayor has a very strong investment in our schools. She wants you to be successful, but she also understands that the most direct path isn't always the best path, which means that we can't only focus on the academic piece. That is extremely important.
All right, guys, our video's weirdly kind of cutting out there. Sorry about that. That was just moments ago. You saw DC's Mayor Muriel Bowser there, along with some other people, talk about the exciting event that it's tonight. So let me know, guys, if you guys are locals or if you know much. I'm seeing Ian, you're saying you love the EPL. Woohoo! So always fun to have some cool viewers. Let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious if you guys are in and around the States or in Europe. We have some European viewers as well. We're in DC, guys, and we're going to be bringing you the live news everywhere. And so right now, we're going to jump up to Boston right now. Do you guys remember this? A notorious priest in the Catholic sex abuse cases, Paul Shanley, is going to be released this week. There's a press conference going on right now up in Boston about that. Let's check in there.
At the time, we didn't know what Paul Shanley was like. Now we do. Every parent has to be vigilant with their kids. If they see Paul Shanley in their neighborhood, they need to contact the authorities right away to say that they're not happy with Paul Shanley in their community and they want him out. There's nothing more that we can do but to harass Paul Shanley. Paul Shanley should never feel comfortable in his skin. Paul Shanley is a threat. And I can't believe that the doctors can't see that. But thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dennis O'Connor. As a 14 and 15-year-old boy, I had a very unfortunate experience with Paul Shanley. I recently looked online and saw his blog, and he still claims that he's not a child molester. We all know that if you've got an issue, the first point of moving forward is acknowledging your issue. He hasn't acknowledged his issue. We talk about Shanley like we use the term molester. You know, he's a sodomizer. You know, when we talk about molesting, we think of fondling, inappropriate groping and things like that. Shanley's a sodomizer. There's a lot of criticism about how the Catholic Church has handled this issue. And look at the state of Massachusetts right now. What's the state of Massachusetts doing? The church moved these priests around from parish to parish. The state of Massachusetts is going to put him out so he can prey on more people? What's the cost of another trial after Shanley abuses more children or adults, whatever it's going to be? The state, we have to put another trial together, put him back in prison again? That doesn't make any sense. People worry today about how we look to the rest of the world regarding climate change. How do you think we look to the rest of the world regarding child sexual abuse? Why can't we be a leader and come up with some innovative ways to deal with this issue? You know, the perception we put people in jail or punish them, that's not what this issue is about. We take people off the street, they're sodomizers. We're taking them off the street so we can protect the people in our society that can't take care of themselves. I hope you get this message out, and I hope someone has the insight how to deal with this. Let's be a leader on this issue. Get our heads out of the sand. We know this is ravaging our communities. It's costing millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. The people with abuse problems that come out of this. Please help us get the message out. Let's use Shanley as an example of how we can deal with this issue. And again, thank you all for your time and attention to this.
My name is Jetta Bernier. I'm Executive Director for Mass Kids. We're a statewide child advocacy organization. We've worked with Mitch and with Carmen and with many of the survivors across the state to pass legislation around statute of limitations reform. And that was a good victory for us and for the survivors. But today is a reminder to us that the work is not done. I want to point out one thing that Dennis said that I think is critical, and that is that during his imprisonment, Shanley has refused treatment. He's also denying that he is a child molester. Clearly, without that acknowledgement, there is no safety in terms of him being released. He does not believe that having non-consensual relationships with kids is wrong. One of the things that we are now doing in Massachusetts to try to use this opportunity to create some change, we've been working with Senator Lovely on a Senate Bill 295. We had a public hearing just last week. There's great support in Massachusetts for a number of prevention initiatives, and this particular bill would address some of the issues that have surfaced in this case concerning Shanley. This new bill would require all schools and youth organizations to provide training to their adult employees about child sexual abuse and how to prevent it. It would mandate these institutions to begin developing safe child policies, codes of conduct. What is boundary violating behaviors that should be avoided? How do we respond to those? Why do we have to wait until abuse has happened before we report it to the officials? What can we do before then? A part of the bill talks about the need for a change in our age of consent laws. Right now, a teacher involved with a student over the age of 16 in Massachusetts is protected from any kind of repercussions. Why? Because the age of consent is 16, and those who abuse children after that period of time, and many of them do so very much knowing that they won't be touched with by the law after 16. Many of these individuals will groom young kids, but only begin a sexual relationship with them at the age of 16. So this particular bill would make it clear that a child, up until the time that they leave high school, either with a high school diploma or a certificate if they're a special needs child, these children would not be able to give their consent in this type of relationship because of the imbalance of power. And so we, the Mass Chiefs of Police Association, very strongly behind this. We're hoping to close that loophole. There are many other provisions to this bill. I won't get into all of them, but I think in terms of responding to what Dennis has said, we are working hard to make sure that Massachusetts was not only the epicenter of the clergy sexual abuse crisis, but it becomes a leader in the country in terms of talking about how we can prevent child sexual abuse from ever occurring. So today we are more and more encouraged and inspired to keep working on the prevention field, and we hope the rest of you will give us your support and let the public know that there are efforts ongoing now to prevent sexual abuse from ever occurring. So thank you so much.
My name is Robert Hoatson, Hoatson. I'm the co-founder and president of Road to Recovery. We're a 501c3 charity based in New Jersey, and we assist dozens of victims in Massachusetts, actually, and have for many years. I'm the former assistant headmaster of Catholic Memorial High School, and in the 1980s, I whistle blew the sexual abuse of Monsignor Fred Ryan there, and was ignored. What Paul Shanley's release does to me is it creates in me another void. I know we're going to have to do a lot of work of advocacy in the next several days because it's going to create this PTSD response in many of the victims we work with. It already has. This morning I received a call from a mother whose son committed suicide, and she said his abuser was roaming a park in Dorchester last night. The same neighborhood where Joe Crowley, or a similar neighborhood where Joe Crowley, who was featured in the movie Spotlight and a Shanley victim, grew up. And in honor of Joe Crowley, I think today what we should be considering is the fact that Paul Shanley, in essence, destroyed Joe Crowley's life, and which led to his early demise. And Paul Shanley on Friday is going to see the light of day. And if anybody can't see the disparity and the dishonesty of that, then we have a lot of work to do in educating people. Thank you.
All right. Questions?
Can we get Dennis and John to tell us a little bit about their experiences with Father Shanley?
Dennis and John, are you comfortable talking about that?
Depends on what you want to ask.
Could you just tell us the basics of what parish he was at when he abused you and how it came about and what the circumstances were, and then just the basics. We don't have to.
Yeah, I lived in Braintree in St. Francis Parish. He had a street ministry. My mother used to work with him at Thanksgiving to come in and serve Thanksgiving dinner to lots of people. And it, one time, as I was a young man, my mother thought it'd be good for me to go in and get some counseling, as we think a lot of young people do, and that was when I was sodomized by Shanley.
You were 14?
14 or 15. Can't tell you exactly what age, but it's...
Do you remember what year that was?
I'd have to do the math. I was born in 1954, so we had 14 or 15 to that.
And did it happen repeatedly, or?
No.
One time? And you went into your parish office to meet with him for counseling?
In Boston, in his street ministry.
Okay.
What was it about him that you trusted him?
Nothing.
What went through your mind yesterday when you heard the news that he was going to be released? I mean, what was that moment like for you?
Well, it's frustrating, knowing that he's going to, if he's released, we've got more children that are going to be abused.
Mitchell talked about being re-victimized. Do you feel that way?
I don't like to be looked at as a survivor or a victim. You know, at one time, I may have been a victim, I may have been a survivor. Today, I don't like to be labeled and looked at as a victim or a survivor. They have different connotations.
Could you tell us how it affected your life, or how you see it as affecting your life?
You know, I don't know if I want to get too far into that right now. We could go on for quite a while.
But along the same lines that Beth was asking, did you feel like a pit in your stomach when you heard his name again yesterday? What was like your initial reaction? Did you call someone? Did you do anything about it?
I didn't hear his name yesterday. I got a call from Jetta, and she told me there was a conference going on.
And what was your reaction when you heard that he was actually going to be let out?
I felt I needed to be here and do something to keep him away from children.
Have you thought about, Massachusetts is a big place, but if you met him on the street or in the supermarket, have you thought about what you would do, if anything?
I'm not going to meet him on the street. If I'd be happy to sit down with him and help him talk about his problem and help him admit that he's got a problem. You know, I'd rather sit down in a situation like that. Is there any way we can help this guy? I think right now, letting him out of prison without him acknowledging that he's got a problem is not helping him.
Does the effort stop here for you, or is there something you plan on doing going forward?
No, I just met Jetta, and I live in New York, Maine, and we're setting up a organization in Maine that mimics what she set up here, and we're training people to go out and talk to community members about this issue. And we're going to have people in that community that are going to advocate at the state level, and she has quite a plan. I'm impressed with her organization. And we have a good support network in York that consists of the police department, the hospitals. They're supporting her.
Can we ask you some of those same questions?
Thank you, Dennis.
Sure.
What was your reaction along the same line?
Well,
Yesterday, what was your reaction to that?
that he was going to be released. Concern, as I said earlier, just concern for the public, especially finding out that he hasn't admitted to sexually abusing anybody, and so there's been no rehabilitation, and so you know, just concerned about boys and girls, men and women. You know, this is a guy, Shanley, who has manipulated the system, the church, and the public, and knows how to manipulate people. And I'm concerned that he's going to abuse again.
John, can you share with us some details about your personal experience?
Sure. I was 21, just coming out as gay, and I was referred to Father Shanley by a professor at the University of Lowell in 1979, and I met him. It was in February of '79. He was going through his street priest phase, and he was at it was a place called the Exodus Center on Brush Hill Road in Milton. And I think you can find out information about that at bishopsaccountability.org. And he raped me under the pretense of helping me. So actually I did meet him one more time, and he brought me in town, Boston, to visit some gay bars and some in a gay cinema. And when we got back to Milton, I just went home. I didn't feel right about it. He gave me the creeps. So it was a one-time occurrence.
And how damaging has it been for you?
Well, you know, I think it kind of highlights part of my life that I tend to seek help from people who are not going to help me, until I met Carmen Durso. And so that was the beginning of some of my healing. And so in a way it was kind of good that, you know, the Spotlight story came out, because it triggered in me my memories about the abuse, and I finally got some help for it.
You hadn't sought help prior to that?
No.
Prior to seeing the movie and realizing that?
No, I sought help in 2002 from Carmen, and got myself back into therapy. So, and it had been a long road.
So sort of an issue was trusting people.
Trusting people, and trying to calm my nerves by getting into drinking. And I got myself into severe depression, and I've been dealing with that for about over 20 years. I've been hospitalized a couple of times for it. And in my mind, it is all kind of linked. So.
Sort of interesting about your story is that you were 21 years old when you came in contact with him.
Yeah.
And what many people here are saying is that he's not just a danger to children, but he's a danger to society. Can you talk about that?
Right. You know, from what we know about him, he has abused people of all ages, both boys and girls, men and women. And so that's really concerning to me. You know, as you've heard from so many people that have talked, he runs the gamut. He's a sexual predator plus, you know, and he knows how to manipulate the system. And it'll be interesting to see what the Catholic Church is saying about what's happening.
So is it fair to say that no one is safe if he's on the street?
Right, exactly.
Speaking of age, do you think that he would stop at 86 years old?
No, I don't. Knowing his history and knowing how he operates, no, I don't think so.
what would you say to him if you were to encounter him in the street?
I'd remind him of who I was and what he did to me, and I wouldn't expect any acknowledgement about it. But just that I'm out there and I'm watching him.
Can we ask how old you are?
Hmm?
Can we ask you how old you are now, John?
I'm 59.
59.
Yeah.
Do you think
Dennis?
there's any risk for Shanley himself physically? Do you think anyone might seek vengeance against him?
I don't know.
You don't feel vengeance in your heart, though?
No. No. I mean, no. Vengeance, no. I'd like to see him still behind bars. So, but I have no control over that.
Does the fact that the film Spotlight came out and so many people now know who he is and know his background give you any sort of comfort that at least people in the community are familiar with his name, so if they hear that he's living nearby or he's living in a certain community, they will look out for him?
I don't believe that the Spotlight movie has emblazoned his name in people's minds. I think this gives me more comfort, this press conference, because it's specific to him. And so hopefully that will make more people aware.
Mr. and Mrs. Ford, could you give us an update on Greg? How is he? Is he receiving treatment? Is he, what kind of a setting is he in?
Go ahead.
He lives with us. He clearly is not happy. He's very upset, understandably so. It's a trigger. I mean, we bring our children up to do the right thing, and they did, and it turns around and bites them in the butt. So he's feeling a little bit betrayed and angry.
Does he have a
And he's
job?
not alone.
Is he able to, has he?
I'm not going to address that. I don't think it has any dealing. It doesn't mean, it doesn't matter. But let's put it this way. I shudder to wonder what he would have been like had Paul Shanley not entered our lives when he was 6. But he's a good man. He does the best that he can, and he has more courage than anybody I know.
Mr. Ford, you were talking a little bit about harassing him when he gets out, or making sure that people know he lives in that neighborhood and not making him comfortable. Many people would say maybe that's not the right way to deal with this, that there may be a better way. You're pretty strong in your feelings that he does not belong in society. You want to make him uncomfortable.
That's how I do feel. I don't have many recourses. If I ran into Shanley as a father, what he did to me, my son,
You would not hurt him.
I would hurt him.
You have to understand, excuse me, there are no boundaries with Paul Shanley. He used to hang around the old Trailways bus station in Boston in Park Square with other men and pick up runaways from the bus, innocent children who were running away. There are no boundaries here.
I just want to be clear on this. I'm not physically going after Paul Shanley. You asked a hypothetical. If I ran into Paul Shanley, that's the hypothetical question. I have no intentions of going after Paul Shanley. Me going after Paul Shanley wouldn't resolve anything. If I did take vengeance out on Paul Shanley, my son would have no father. My daughter would have no father. My wife would have no husband. It wouldn't be worth it. I have those thoughts. What father wouldn't have those thoughts that destroyed his son? I have to be real and tell you that. But I'm not going to physically go after Paul Shanley.
Mr. Druso, can you tell us a little bit about the community notification, if any, that there will be? Will the police in the town where he lives know? And if so, can the police tell the community?
I understand that he's a level 3 sex offender, and the level 3 sex offenders are their locations are published. They're online. They're available to people. People can check with their local police, and they'll get that information. But it's also publicly available. I want to just say a couple more things about Paul Shanley. Paul Shanley was a street priest, and as Mitch has said, while he was there, he had a ready source of victims. Joe Crowley, who was both a client and became a dear friend, is not with us today. He died recently. And Joe was this bright, vibrant person whose life was essentially taken away by Paul Shanley. Turned him into an alcoholic. Joe fought it, eventually became sober for many years, but no question in my mind, he died young because of that, because of Paul Shanley. Joe told me what Shanley was like. He'd be in the gay bars, as Mitch has mentioned. He'd have a group of these underage kids that he had found from the bus stations and other places. He used the guise that I'm here to help people. I'm here to help people deal with the most difficult problems of their life, whether they think they might be gay, whether they think they're not sure about that, whether they're having... Joe Crowley was an Irish Catholic kid from Dorchester who thought he was gay and said that to his father one day. He says, you can't be because neither your mother or I are gay, you know, and he didn't know what to do. At that time, there was no place to go. He gets directed to Paul Shanley, and Paul Shanley's supposed to help him. Paul Shanley's help was to get Joe's clothes off him as quickly as he could, have sex with him, and then dismiss him. That was Paul Shanley. Mitch and I and Eric McLeish and Alan Cantor have all talked to a number of the victims. They all describe Shanley the same way. Sexually aggressive, and when he was done with you, he was dismissive. I can't tell you the year right now, but at some point, I think it was in the 70s, Paul Shanley was involved with NAMBLA. You all know what NAMBLA is, the National North American Man-Boy Love Association, an organization dedicated to the proposition that it's okay for adults to have sex with kids. That's Paul Shanley. That's his mindset. This information came to the attention of a prominent Catholic layperson who, I'm told, went to Cardinal Medeiros and said, what the heck's going on with this guy? Why are you supporting him in this mission? So Cardinal Medeiros, I believe, was responsible for Paul Shanley being assigned. Shanley had been living in an apartment in Boston. He had free reign. He could go wherever he wanted to go, do what he wanted to do, and that's where he did most of his abuse. He was then assigned by Medeiros to the Newton Parish. In the Newton Parish, he no longer had access to the large group of people that he was abusing before. As a result of that, Shanley turned his attention to young kids like Greg Ford, which was way outside of what he was involved with before. He also abused another one of my clients who was in his 50s, who had questions about his sexuality and wanted some advice and was referred to Shanley. Shanley had sex with him. That was his way of exploring your sexuality. In addition, there was another person who was in that parish who had physical disabilities, and Shanley had sex with that individual. The point I want to make about Shanley is this. When Shanley no longer had access to his preferred range of victims, when he was in the Newton Parish, he adapted. And he adapted to whatever was available to him, whether it was 6-year-old kids or men in their 50s and 60s who were not as attractive to him as the other victims would have been. This is why Paul Shanley remains a threat. He is a very adaptable person who will abuse whoever he has the opportunity to abuse. Now, I've told you about Anthony Lorano, the priest from Plymouth, who was abusing people in his 80s. I don't think Paul Shanley is going to be deterred by age. I don't think he's going to be deterred by circumstances. He clearly has never acknowledged that he's done anything wrong. He doesn't think he's done anything wrong. If you talk to the people whose specialty it is to treat sex offenders, what they will tell you is they are the most difficult people in the world to treat because they don't think they've done anything wrong for which they ought to be treated. And that's Paul Shanley in a nutshell. So if Paul Shanley is still in that state of mind at his age and has the adaptability, we think if he gets out that he is going to be a threat again. We know that at least one of the doctors who examined Shanley did not understand the range of victims. He thought they were limited to a particular time period. He thought they were limited to one gender. I have a female victim. I know there are other female victims of Shanley. He did not limit himself. So that's why we are so concerned that Paul Shanley is being released.
So the evaluators did not have enough information. What about the qualifications of these two particular evaluators? Do they seem qualified to make this decision?
They're mental health professionals who work in this area. There's a process by which you become what's called a QE, a qualified examiner. And I understand they're both qualified examiners. Let me make one point, by the way. The Middlesex District Attorney's Office did a phenomenal job in prosecuting Paul Shanley. It was a 25, 30-year-old case that they, through the fluke of having a victim as young as Greg Ford and the fact that he left Massachusetts, which stopped the statute of limitations from running, it was that combination of things that made it possible for him to be prosecuted. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been. And they had a very difficult trial. They had Shanley hired national experts on memory to come in, and they blew those people away. They did a superb. I sat through every day of the trial with Joe Crowley, and we watched that case tried. It was perfect. It was textbook. I wish I could try a case as well as the case in which they prosecuted Shanley. So I'm not being critical of the district attorney's office. They tried getting two different experts to keep Paul Shanley in custody. It's not their fault that the experts are saying what they're saying. The system, the standards they're applying, they have got to be changed. If a Paul Shanley can walk out of prison after his conviction because these standards don't apply to him, then I don't know who's going to be stopped from walking out the door. We had the priest from Haverhill, Paquin, also
Father
Father Paquin also did not have the sexually dangerous person. These are long-term, multi-victim predators, and they are not being put into this SDP program. I don't know how psychotic you have to be in order to be deemed a sexually dangerous person.
Carmen, can you talk about some of the other standards in addition to age? What else they use? What other criteria they use?
You know, I don't know all of them. I know that they're relying on them. They're relying on statistics. How long it's been since the person abused last? Well, Shanley's been in jail for 15 years. Before that, he was in California. He abused one of my clients in California while he was there. That's the last known victim. I have
when was that? What year was that?
It's in the 90s.
90s.
Yeah.
That's the last time we know he committed.
That's the last time we know for sure. I guarantee you that Shanley has many other victims that are out there. I've had people call me and say, you know, I was abused by Shanley. I don't want to do anything about it. I'm dealing with it in my own way. Shanley was in a number of parishes. He's been in a number of locations. We distribute you information from Bishop Accountability. You'll see all the places he's been and the kind of places he's been and the people he's been associated with. He is associated constantly with people of the same mind about abusing kids. Every time there's a hearing at the State House on sexual abuse issues, there's a group of people that were involved with Shanley in NAMBLA. They come up to the State House to argue about why the sex offender registry shouldn't be there, why the science is bad about this, that these people don't really pose a threat to anybody, and it's natural to have sex with kids.
Can I ask, you have emphasized your concerns with the threat that Shanley poses now. I'm wondering if there's any sense of this that is he hasn't been sufficiently punished for what he's done and that the release of him now.
No, this is not about punishment. This is about prevention and safety. You would have to listen to the clients describe the ease with which Shanley engage them in sex acts. I met Shanley once when we served him with papers while he was in custody. And the thing that struck me was how ordinary he looked, because every client described to me how powerful he was, his ability to engage them, his ability to say, I'm here to help you. And the next thing they know, they're naked and he's having sex with them. I mean, and this is who he was. And the thing that always got me is they always said as soon as it was over, he was dismissive. He had what he wanted, and okay, I'll see you later. We gotta go now. That was Paul Shanley.
You mentioned punishment. The irony here is that the victims are punishing themselves for being sexually abused as children by a Catholic priest. They're the ones who constantly punish themselves. And this press conference today is about accountability. Cardinal Medeiros, Cardinal Law, you didn't do your job. You hid the facts. You let innocent children be sexually abused. That's not right. That's criminal. And many victims feel as though Cardinal Law should be prosecuted. If they did their jobs, many lives would have been saved. Individuals, children, Carmen would agree with me, I believe, commit suicide over these abuses. They punish themselves. And if they're not committing suicide, they're self-medicating with drugs or alcohol. Or they're alone, or they have lack of self-esteem, or they're hospitalized. Ironically, the punishment is the victims are punishing themselves. Cardinal Law, where were you? You're still in Rome. I'd love to hear a response from Cardinal Law as to this situation. Maybe one of you can try to contact him. He knew what was going on. He's responsible. You have purportedly the most moral institution in the world acting the most immorally.
What specific proposals are you looking to address this issue? Is there anything specific that would change through legislation or other processes?
I don't have anything specific at this point in time. As Carmen said, these doctors looked at the history of Paul Shanley, and it's beyond me how they could not have determined that he was a sexual predator, pure and simple. As I mentioned before, he hung around, according to my clients, he hung around at Trailways bus station, the old Trailways bus station that was in Park Square with other men, and he'd pick up wayward children and sexually molest them, coming off the buses from New York or wherever. It's endless. And now he's going to be out there in society, unwatched, uncontrolled, and he's not even wearing a bracelet.
In a situation like this, does he go to a halfway house? I mean,
in theory, he goes to a halfway house, but in practice, the government doesn't have the resources to watch these perpetrators, to track these perpetrators. A bus comes to the Pine Street Inn or to St. Francis House or wherever, okay, and drops these perpetrators off. Supposedly, they go inside, but they don't go inside. Now, he's not wearing a bracelet. He's not wearing any sort of mechanism to track them. So where is he? He's out molesting children. We all know that. He's going to be molesting again. It's not a maybe. That's why we're here today. That's why these heroes, I'm sorry, are speaking up. It's not a maybe. He's going to be doing it. He's molested hundreds of children. There's no doubt in our minds. As a group of lawyers, we know how many he's molested. He's molested hundreds of children. The documents speak for themselves, just like in Father Gagan cases. There are thousands of pages of Paul Shanley being a sexual predator, and Bernard Cardinal Law and his predecessor hid those facts. They let him have free reign. Where is Cardinal O'Malley now? Has he got a secret deal with Shanley in terms of a pension? Even though Shanley was involuntarily laicized, my sources tell me there could still be a secret deal where the Archdiocese of Boston is paying Paul Shanley money. Is there any sort of relationship between Paul Shanley and the Archdiocese of Boston right now? as usual, when a predator is found to be, when a predator is found to be guilty and a victim is found to be credible, the church cuts the cord with the predator for cosmetic effect. It's window dressing. But what have they really done behind the curtain?
Do you have any inkling of where he'll go?
No one knows. That's the problem. And wherever he's supposed to go, we don't know if he'll actually be there. My guess is he probably won't be there. He'll probably be in a park with children. It isn't just going to stop. There's no magic wand here.
So what should the community do? You talked about what you believe is the danger. What should the community, the police, do when inevitably probably we will learn where he is?
What I believe we should do, what the community should do, is alert the police as to his whereabouts. Victims will go to the police department where he's located and say, I want you to know this happened to me by Father Paul Shanley, who is living at such and such an address. And although the statute of limitations is run, I want you to know this. And we've done this multiple times over years, and the police always say, thank you very much, we're going to keep an eye on him. Then Paul Shanley will move to another town. He's very clever. Pedophiles are very clever and cunning and coy. They know exactly how to prey upon innocent children. And it's up to the advocacy groups like Jetta's group and Bob Holston's group and SNAP to maintain a public eye so that these predators are kept in public. It's up to these advocacy groups to make sure the public knows where these predators are at all times.
Does his probation require him to stay within Massachusetts?
But that...
No, he can move to any state?
Well, he can move to any state where the other state agrees to keep him under probationary supervision. But that's going to mean different things in different states.
Now keep in mind, he's going to be a level 3 sex offender. But he can apply to have that reduced to a level 2 or a level 1. And often sex offenders will do that. They'll hire the quote-unquote expert who will say he only meets 14 of the 20 criteria, and quietly his status will be changed to a level 2 or level 1. There is nothing preventing Paul Shanley from doing that. Okay? Nothing. Now, if we have 2 experts who found him not to be a sexually dangerous person, I think he can go out and find some expert who's going to say he shouldn't be a level 2. He should be, by the way, a level 1, so that he doesn't have his whereabouts will not be public.
So Carmen, what are you calling for? I thought you said at the beginning you're calling for a change in the SPP law, are you?
Well, you have to understand that finding out that this was going to happen meant that we had to look at this stuff very quickly and very carefully. We talked to the district attorney's office. They were extremely cooperative. They were doing everything they could possibly do, but they said to us essentially, here's the problem, there's this set of standards, and he doesn't meet all the criteria necessary for these experts to make that opinion. Then the problem is those standards have to be changed. If Mitch and I, who are just lawyers, but who have had years of dealing with people like Shanley and years of dealing specifically with Shanley, if we can see what kind of a danger he poses, I think a mental health professional ought to understand the same thing. Either they're not looking at all the information, and we offered to speak with these physicians. They did not want to speak to attorneys about this. We offered though to speak with them, and their opinions have already been rendered. They're not going to be changed as far as we can tell. So now we just had a couple of days to be able to do this. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to find out what every standard is. I'm going to sit down with people I know who are specialists in there is a special mental health specialty that deals with sexual abusers. I'm going to sit down with those people and say, what do we have to do to change these to make this apply to the Paul Shanleys of the world?
Do you have access to the reports that the evaluators use?
No.
Is that public then?
No.
It's not public?
We asked to see that, no.
How do you know the information?
The district attorney's office told us what the conclusions were. They said to us that the reports themselves, which are lengthier documents, are not available. They're not public records. I don't know if that is solely because of the Corey law or if there's another statute, but we asked, can we see those reports? Because we want to be sure they're relying on the right kind of information. They said, no, it's not allowed under the law.
The district attorney.
There's another reason right there, too. You know, in 2014, the rights of victims were changed to be able to get a lot of records relating to their perpetrators. And maybe what we have to do is to get that law amended again so that this kind of information would become available to a victim.
You know that his age was a key factor in their determination that he was not a sexually dangerous.
They told us that the statistics, and that they rely on statistics rather than specifics on certain things. They told us that the statistics are that people reach a certain age and they do not offend as much. Well, you know, some sexual activity relates to being a physical person and physically able to do certain things, or being physically able to overcome somebody. So that probably skews the statistics down so that the more violent sex offenders are not as likely to do something at a certain age because they don't have the physical ability. Paul Shanley never relied on physical ability. He talked his way, as most of these people do. They talk their way into these things. They don't twist arms, they don't break legs. They do it with their voice. Paul Shanley still has his voice. So the answer is, if they're relying on that kind of a statistic, it's unrealistic. They should be looking at the specifics of each case, and the decision should be made at that basis. What they said to us is that they're required to take those statistics into account. That's just silly.
You don't know the key factors that went into their reports that determined it.
We know that was a big one.
What were the other ones they mentioned?
But what the district attorney's office did assure us was that the key factors were looked into, the criteria was looked into, the statute was addressed. They couldn't tell us specifics, but they assured us that. And I agree with Carmen that the district attorney's office in Middlesex has done an admirable job in this case. And not only did they send Paul Shanley to one expert, but they sent him 2 experts.
So are you actually advocating that anyone who sees him should call the police as a way of tracking his whereabouts?
Yes. Take his phone. Well, stay away from him, first of all. Whether you're an adult or a child, stay away from him. But call the police. Notify the police immediately. Very important. And Bob Hodson would like to say one thing.
We're going to be at the prison on Friday to be there to protest his leaving, and we're hoping that we're going to get some victims and some interested people there with us when he is released on Friday. We don't know the time yet, but we're going to be there hopefully, somewhat early in the morning.
Could it be before Friday? Or is Friday the earliest possible?
We've been told it's Friday, so.
What person?
Old Colony, Bridgewater.
Does he have to be released to somebody? Does he walk out on his own?
We don't know.
We don't know.
I don't know. He's free. He's going to be a free man and free to sexually molest. As free as a pedophile can be.
The Fords indicated earlier to me when we were speaking that they believe one of the criteria for considering releasing him early was good behavior. And apparently he was found good time, right? But the fact is apparently that Shanley has been segregated from the major population of inmates. And so he did not have the opportunity to be sexually aggressive with inmates. Had he been in the general population, he may have in fact not met that criteria for good time. So that's another issue.
In addition, Denise, in addition to calling the police, posters of his picture should be posted in public places, whether it be in the post office, poles, mailboxes, wherever it's legal. Post his picture if he's in the area with a beware exclamation point under his name.
Throughout the Commonwealth or in the town where he lives?
Wherever he lives, and he should be tracked at all times. If he moves, the same process should take place where he lives.
And his address should, if he's going on probation, his address should be known by now, isn't it?
We don't know his address.
It's up to him, I believe, to report to the police his location. So
Again, there's no tracking device he's going to be wearing.
Yeah, he's required within a certain number of days to report to the police in the town where he resides. If he doesn't, that's a violation. That's maybe a separate crime, I think.
Do you think that should change? Do you think towns should have advance notice?
I think that's a good idea. The sex offender registry stuff is very contentious. There are constant battles. I don't know where they get all this money to fight these battles, but they're constantly battling with what standard should be applied. Originally, the standard was a civil standard of preponderance of the evidence. Then they went to the Supreme Judicial Court, and now it's clear and convincing evidence. So, you know, there's, and every bill that comes up before the legislature with regard to sex offenders is contested hotly by people who are in that community.
Again, it's about prevention and not cure.
Is this the first case that has prompted you to call for a change in the law? Or have other priests been released?
The Paquin was released
recently.
Recently, but he went to Maine, and my understanding is he got charged in Maine, and that I don't know if he's in custody there, but that's sort of. I had talked to someone who lived in Maine, and we were discussing what could be done, but. I think that he's been subsequently charged in Maine, and so that kind of took him out of the picture.
So what is this is the first?
This is the first one that I've been personally.
What is a major concern is that he can be reclassified as a sex offender to a level 2 or level 1. He can be. He has the opportunity, according to the law, to reapply, and if he brings in the right doctor. It's not beyond a realm of possibility that he could be reclassified, given the two doctors have stated that he's not.
Okay, guys, so it looks like this possibly just cut out. Well, we had that presser on for quite a while. I see that some of you guys have joined the stream and have some comments about this. Just to sort of recap, Paul Shanley was among the first clergymen to actually stand trial when the Boston Globe Spotlight team, if you guys remember that movie, they unearthed these allegations that there was sex abuse and it was covered up by the Boston Archdiocese. So he is a famous name there. This was quite a dramatic press conference here, hearing from some of the victims of this sex abuse and what they would do if they saw him now. And this is really a protest to him getting out of prison after 12 years.
Yeah. Obviously emotional. I mean, we heard from some of the victims, from some of the people related to the victims, and, you know, very understandable, you know, sense of anger, sense of, you know, almost I think betrayal to some extent by the legal system. Like they just don't want somebody, you know, with that kind of history back out on the streets.
And now he's being scheduled to be released under supervised probation is what they're saying. He was initially convicted of child rape and indecent assault and battery, but he received 12 to 15 years. So now it's up, it's sort of at the beginning of that 12 years mark. Definitely an interesting press conference to hear from some of those people. Of course, some of the victims and their lawyers, some of the victims' parents, I believe, were also there. One of those fathers talking about the scenario. Nostalgic Soul, good to see you guys on the stream, saying that he would be dead by now if he was in general prison, is what I'm guessing. Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, for sure.
Thinking that, for sure. Yeah, guys, so anyway, that was live from up in Massachusetts. Just sort of cut out the stream, but interesting to take that for you guys live. Let's go down now. Actually, some other breaking news that has come in the past hour. If you guys remember, House Minority Whip Steve Scalise, he's being discharged from the hospital. He was shot 6 weeks ago at the Alexandria Congressional Baseball Practice shooting that we took for you guys live all day, that fateful Wednesday. He's now going to begin inpatient rehabilitation. So good signs from there.
Yeah, definitely good signs. I mean, that's kind of one of those underlying stories that's been hanging out on the kind of docket for the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however it's long. So good to see his condition continuing to improve.
Yep, and also on the politics side, reading that the White House press briefing will be on camera today. So we're back on camera with the new press sec, who is Sarah Huckabee Sanders. So we'll see if we get that in the time that we're here. We'll bring that to you guys live if we have it. So for now, let's go over to the Senate floor. We're live there, listening in as this healthcare debate continues. We saw some notables on the floor earlier today, which we'll bring you as well on the show. But let's go over live now inside the Senate chamber, guys.
So I've got a meeting that I've got to get to. I just want to summarize this, and my friends from Oregon and Michigan can correct me if I'm wrong. We are looking at a bill that came from the House and various proposals being introduced here in the Senate, which essentially says that we're going to throw over 20 million Americans off of the health insurance that they currently have. And what I haven't heard much discussion about is what happens to somebody who today has health insurance who's struggling with cancer, maybe getting chemotherapy or radiation therapy right now. What happens to somebody who's in treatment for diabetes? What happens to somebody who has a serious heart condition, dealing with stroke, and is on Medicaid? What happens to those people when their health insurance is simply cut?
2 points are raised by my colleagues. Very good point. First, in the immediate, those people will go, in my view, to the hospital emergency room, which means that once again we are turning back the clock towards approaches that don't provide better care at lower cost. I'd also like to mention, because a lot of people, when we're out listening to folks at home, because they don't get to testify here in the Senate, people really appreciate the part of the Affordable Care Act that ensures their lifetime limits on what they can be charged by insurers. Almost all of these Republican bills create an arrangement where a state could waive that protection. So not only would people be hurt now who are facing cancer and serious illnesses and probably have to go to the hospital emergency room a fair amount, but people are going to be hurt in the future who have employer-based coverage. 160 million people don't even know what's coming at them.
And if I might just ask one kind of question, would you agree that rather than this approach, which we don't even know day, moment to moment what we're voting on here, because unlike what we did in the Finance Committee back in 2009, there were 100 hearings in Finance Committee and the Health Committee before we even voted on anything back on the Affordable Care Act. Rather than that process, we're looking at a situation where everything coming before us will take away health care for tens of millions of people and raise costs on everybody. Would you agree that it would be better to stop this process, go back to a bipartisan effort to lower costs and increase health care coverage? And would you agree as well that we know that there are people paying too much for copays and premiums that needs to be addressed in the private marketplace? There's not enough competition between the insurance companies. In some places, none in the individual market. So we need to work together to lower costs, starting with prescription drugs, and to also continue to increase the opportunity for people to get health care coverage. And that's what we ought to be doing together, and doing it in a thoughtful way and getting input and actually solving the real problems.
My colleague has described how the Senate works best when you say, look, bipartisanship is not about taking each other's lousy ideas. Bipartisanship is about both sides getting together, having hearings, listening to alternatives and ideas, and often coming up with something nobody has thought of. And my colleague knows a lot about bipartisanship in health, because my colleague was part of our effort back in 2008 when we put together the first bipartisan universal coverage bill in the history of the Senate. 7 Democrats, 7 Republicans. By the way, a number of those Republicans are still serving in the Senate today, so we know that is a better path. So to wrap up this portion of the debate, I would just say to my colleagues, the best way to proceed is with a kind of two-part effort. The first is to say, we all agree the Affordable Care Act is not perfect. We're going to take steps immediately to stabilize the private insurance market. We've got a number of our colleagues, Senator Shaheen, with her effort to make sure people can get some help when they have deductibles and co-payments. Our colleague from Virginia, Senator Kaine, with reinsurance. Senator McCaskill with a fine idea to help areas that are really bare in terms of no coverage. And we have to move to stabilize the private market quickly, because at the end of August, the plans are essentially signing contracts for premiums for 2018. So my colleague is absolutely right. We ought to knock off this partisan our way or the highway approach, move on a bipartisan basis to take steps to improve the Affordable Care Act now, after we have hearings and input and the opportunity to have people in front of the committees of jurisdiction. And after that, we then move to the broader array of issues, starting with the immediate challenge my colleague has led on, which is clamping down on the cost of pharmaceuticals. So you take steps to stabilize the market immediately, and then you move again in a bipartisan way on what our constituents are talking about at every community meeting, which is that their Social Security checks, the benefits they get, aren't coming close to keeping up with the rise in the cost of prescriptions. So I thank my colleague. This has been very helpful. Her questions, our colleague from Vermont, Senator Sanders, and Madam President, I yield the floor.
Madam President.
Senator from South Dakota.
Madam President, I don't need to tell anyone why we are here. We are here because Obamacare is fundamentally broken. That's clear. It's evident. Everybody knows that. A combination of soaring premiums and rapidly decreasing insurer participation has left the law's centerpiece, the healthcare exchanges, literally on the brink of collapse. Insurers are fleeing. Nationwide, 141 insurers have registered to offer plans on the exchanges in 2018, which represents a 38% drop from 2017. And that's on top of a nearly 30% drop in insurer participation from 2016 to 2017. So, Madam President, if that trend of the past 2 years continues, the final number of insurers offering plans on the exchanges in 2018 is likely to be roughly half of the number that offered plans in 2016, a year ago. At least 40 counties around the country are likely to have no Obamacare insurer in 2018. And another 1,300 plus counties are likely to have just one choice of insurer. President Obama once said that shopping on the exchanges would be like buying a TV on Amazon. Well, Madam President, for a lot of people next year, it's going to be like shopping for a TV on Amazon if Amazon only offered one TV. And of course, for some people, it's going to be like shopping for a TV on Amazon only to discover that Amazon has no TVs at all. Another thing Obamacare was supposed to do, of course, was make health insurance more affordable. That hasn't worked too well. Premiums on the exchanges have soared, and soared again. Between 2013 and 2017, the average individual market monthly premium in the healthcare.gov states increased by 105%. 105%, Madam President. How many families in this country can afford to have their health insurance premium more than double in just 5 years. And there's no end in sight. Here are some of the premium hikes that insurers are proposing for 2018. In Maryland, one insurer has proposed an average premium increase of 52%. An Iowa insurer is seeking an average 43.5% premium increase. A North Carolina insurer is pursuing an average 22.9% hike. A Virginia insurer is looking for an average rate increase of 38%. A Delaware insurer is looking for an average rate hike of 33.6%. A Maine insurer is seeking an average rate hike of 40%. And in New Mexico, one insurer is seeking a rate increase of nearly 80%. And again, Madam President, those aren't rate hikes for just 1 year. That's after years of dramatic premium increases on the exchanges. And suffering under Obamacare isn't limited to high premiums and decreasing choices. There are the Americans who have lost their health care plans, and the Americans who have lost access to the doctors that they liked, and the huge deductibles that have left some Americans unable to use their insurance, and the Obamacare tax hikes that have hurt small businesses and driven up the cost of health insurance. Madam President, Obamacare has failed, and Americans are suffering. Doing nothing is not an option. Now, yesterday we moved forward to debate legislation to provide relief to the millions of Americans who have been hurt by Obamacare. And we're going to have a full debate and give people a chance to help shape a final bill. I hope that at the end of the week, we will be able to pass a strong bill to start undoing the harm that Obamacare has caused. We owe the American people nothing less. We made a commitment to the American people. If they elected us, we would do everything that we could to give them relief from Obamacare. It's time to make good on that promise. Madam President, chances to do away with damaging government programs don't come around every day. Once you give the government power, it can be pretty hard to wrest it away. This week, we have the chance to start repealing a really bad government program. We need to take it. If we don't act to help the American people, no one will. Democrats have made it clear that if they were in power, they would be doubling down on Obamacare's failures. The head of the Democrat Party in the United States Senate has openly stated that single-payer health care is on the table for Democrats. A number of our colleagues on the Democrat side have proposed that legislation. An analysis of one of our Democrat colleagues' single-payer plan estimated that it would cost $32 trillion over 10 years. $32 trillion. Well, that would require a tax hike so staggering that the Washington Post pointed out that even the senator who proposed it, an avowed socialist, didn't offer anything close to what would be needed to pay for it. We are the only hope Americans have of getting out from under Obamacare's burdens. Madam President, this week we have a chance to pass legislation to finally provide them with relief. And I've heard my colleagues get up and talk about the impact that the proposed legislation that's before us would have on people across this country and American workers. And I have to say that I've talked to a lot of rank-and-file, hardworking South Dakotans and South Dakota families who have been hit so hard by these premium increases. I've talked to families, mom and a dad, 2 kids, who are paying more than $2,000 a month in premiums to get insurance in the individual marketplace. In my state of South Dakota, premiums since 2013, the last 5 years, have gone up 124%. 124%. They have literally doubled. You know what that means in South Dakota? That's almost $3,600 increase in just the last 5 years. Now, what average family who's trying to raise kids, trying to pay the bills, trying to save for retirement, try to put something aside for college education, try to pay the mortgage and the utility bill, how many families can put up with a health care bill that's gone up in the last 5 years by almost $3,600? That, Madam President, is a crisis. That's why we're here. And our colleagues on the other side want to turn a deaf ear and a blind eye to what's happening out there, but we can't afford to do that anymore because the status quo is unsustainable. There is just absolutely no way that the American people who are suffering under the harm that's been caused by Obamacare can continue to abide the status quo. It is up to us to take the steps that are necessary to move us in a different direction, a better path that brings stability to the marketplace, that gives people more choices, more options, greater competition, and brings down premiums and deductibles and the costs that are driving family budgets through the roof. What we've seen since Obamacare has been implemented, Madam President, is higher costs, higher taxes, and fewer options. It's as simple as that. That's what we're up against, and that's why it's time for us to act. And I hope when we conclude this process at the end of this week, and we have an opportunity for everybody to offer their amendments, that we will move forward with a bill that will fulfill our promise to the American people. Madam President, I yield the floor.
Madam President, I appreciate the remarks.
Senator from Rhode Island.
I appreciate the remarks of my friend. I would simply note that nothing that he said explains why you would want to strip hundreds of millions of dollars out of Medicaid, why you would want to deny coverage to elderly folks who get Medicaid support for their nursing homes, people who are in the throes of addiction getting medical support for opioid treatment. Children are often born on Medicaid, why you'd want to do all that, nor does it explain why you'd want to give big tax breaks to the most well-off people in the country. Fine, let's fix the markets if that's the problem. But this isn't really about that. This is stripping money out of Medicaid to give it to very wealthy people who are doing quite well already, in my view. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Montana.
Mr. President, Karen from Missoula County wrote to me about how her daughter can't afford to buy insurance. Obamacare imposes a tax.
Hi guys, just checking in with you here on Fox 5 Live. You're watching our stream out of Fox 5 DC, local news on our YouTube stream. I'm here with intern Cam, guys. Watching a lot of the Senate floor today because this continued debate is going on. This is all after Senator McCain came back yesterday in that dramatic return to the Senate floor, made a little speech, or a grand speech rather, and they voted to move forward with voting on this health care to repeal and or replace Obamacare. So we're kind of hearing from various senators here, and we're going to kind of bounce around on Capitol Hill for some live news today. If anything does break, we're always jumping in with the breaking live sources as we do. So we'll be listening for the monitors for that. But right now, this is what we have coming in live from Capitol Hill. Really gorgeous, very clear day, guys. Take a look at this. And that's where we are inside of the Capitol Dome on this gorgeous blue sky day. It's really pretty feed.
Yep. And really, I mean, just we're kind of getting a lot of the same arguments that we have been getting for the last couple of weeks from Republicans and Democrats. Republicans are basically saying, you know, it's costing us more and more in premiums, and you know, just the cost associated is so high, and they kind of keep pounding home that message. Meanwhile, Democrats are kind of going for the you know, existing condition argument. You know, people with cancer, people with diabetes, people with, you know, heart conditions. You know, they can't afford to pay for their own health insurance, and there's no reason that as you know, as a first world, as such a wealthy country as we are in the United States, there's no there's no reason that they should suffer from those diseases, you know, uncared for. So they're just kind of going back and forth,
opposing,
hammering those two sides of the argument, and we'll see where it kind of comes from.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how this all transpires over the next week, and good to see you back, The Truth and Nostalgic Soul, guys. If you're just joining our stream or you're new to our stream, take a chance and press subscribe if you want to get alerts to when we pop up, and you'll see us here on YouTube on your phone, or you can also go to our website, fox5dc.com. We're streaming there throughout the day too. We are also hearing word, like I was telling you guys before, that we're going inside for the White House press briefing. We should hopefully get that live. If that's in the time frame of our show, we'll bring that to you live, guys. Probably it is the first on-camera one since Sarah Huckabee Sanders was named press secretary, the new press secretary, to replace Sean Spicer. So it could be interesting today, as per usual. Let's go back to the Senate floor, check in there, and we'll be watching for more breaking news and bringing you that live as soon as we have it for more, guys. Over now, Capitol Hill.
Now, our friends across the aisle will say we want to get rid of taxes on the rich, but the rich aren't paying this tax. The poor are paying this tax. You know, I think the right thing to do, the handshake agreement that we have back in Montana as Montanans, where a man or woman's word is worth something, the right thing to do is they should be paid back. And that's why I'll be offering an amendment on the floor when we debate. We should pay back this poverty tax to the poor who have paid it. The poverty tax is just one of the many problems of Obamacare, and I look forward to continued debate. And by the way, if you take this to the higher level here nationwide, nearly 8 million Americans have paid this poverty tax. And as we looked at every state's numbers, it all comes about the same. It's somewhere between 40 and 50% of those Americans make less than $25,000 a year. In Indiana, it's 176,000 Indianans. We've got them for every state. Look at West Virginia. West Virginians, 45,000 of them paid the poverty tax. 49% of them make less than $25,000 a year. Let's take North Dakota. We share, as we say in Montana, a fence line with North Dakota. They're our neighbor. Over 20,000 North Dakotans paid the poverty tax. North Dakotans paid $4.6 million. 40% of them make less than $25,000 a year. Missouri, 143,000 Missourians pay the poverty tax. Nearly 48% of those Missourians make less than $25,000 a year. Wisconsin, 115,000 paid the poverty tax. 45% make less than $25,000. I've got a lot of other states, and I would urge my colleagues to take a look at their respective state and ask, can you look in the mirror and say, we should be charging this poverty tax on those that make less than $25,000 a year. Mr. President, I yield back my time.
President. Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Madam President. I come to the floor. I know my colleague from Indiana, Senator Donnelly, is going to be down here to talk a little bit about his amendment, and I want to support him in that, along with the senator from Pennsylvania, Senator Casey, because we're here to say we need to stop this war on Medicaid. Throughout this healthcare process, it's very clear there are many on the other side of the aisle that just want to cut or gut Medicaid. What we're saying is, if you're serious about protecting Medicaid and stopping the war on Medicaid, then you should support the Donnelly-Cantwell-Casey amendment, which would recommit to the Finance Committee with instructions to strike or reduce or eliminate the language about Medicaid. It would prevent or discourage a state and make sure that they are not prohibited from expanding a Medicaid program, and it would say, don't cost shifts to the states. With this motion, we're saying to our Republican colleagues, we don't want to cut people off of Medicaid. We want the committee to do exactly what the Republican governors are saying, which is quit beating up on Medicaid and focus instead on fixing the individual market. The individual market is 7%. What we've found with the expansion of Medicaid that has been done by both Democrat and Republican governors is great success. I hope my Republican colleagues will heed the warnings of our nation's Republican governors and Democratic governors. In June, they sent a letter to Senate leaders from 7 bipartisan governors. The letter from places like Ohio, Montana, Nevada, Louisiana, Colorado, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania shows the diversity both of our nation and political parties in saying, quote, We believe that first and foremost, Congress should focus on improving our nation's private health care insurance system, end quote. And then they say, quote, Medicaid provisions included in this bill that has been proposed by the House are particularly problematic. Instead, we recommend Congress address factors we can all agree on needing fixing, end quote. So the message was clear from these governors, including Republican governors, and I hope that my colleagues will listen to them. The nation governors know because they've had to provide and be a partner on Medicaid for their citizens. They know how it affects their economy, and they know what it does when families in their states get access to health care. They reduce the bankruptcy rate. They help people stay employed. It boosts GDP. All of these things have been the benefit of Medicaid expansion that we've seen in Washington state that cut the uncompensated care cost in half. It also resulted in the creation of new jobs, and a bipartisan study found that the current bill we're debating, the House bill, if passed, state economies would shrink by $93 billion. So pulling the rug out from under Medicaid recipients would hurt jobs and hurts economies in Nevada, Alaska, West Virginia. West Virginia would lose more than 10,000 jobs, more than $1 billion in gross state product, and more than $1.7 billion in business output. Nevada would lose 3,300 healthcare jobs, and Alaska would lose 2,600. So all of these things are ways for us to say, if you're serious now, before you go home for the August recess, about protecting Medicaid and stopping this ridiculous war on Medicaid, vote for our amendment. Stand up and say, you understand that we may have challenges in the individual market, but it doesn't mean that we should cut people off of access to health care through Medicaid. I thank the President, and I yield the floor.
Who yields time? If no one yields time, time will be charged equally to both sides.
Hey guys, we'll check in with you again here on Fox 5 Live. My name is Molly Nevola, here hosting the live stream today on YouTube. So thanks so much for joining us, and let us know any comments or questions you might have, any thoughts on what you're watching. It looks like they're sort of getting things going, and they're still continuing there on the Senate floor. We'll see if they do take a break. We'll move on to something else. But right now, that is the live feed that we have coming in from Capitol Hill here in Washington, D.C. That's what we got live on our cameras right now. So you're looking at an inside look inside the Senate chamber, inside the Capitol Dome, which is here. And we're going to be, hearing from various people about this healthcare debate. It's continuing, as we've been seeing throughout the last few days. So thank you so much for joining on the stream, for giving us your comments here. Let's go back. Looks like we have another one speaking. We'll check in with you in a little bit here in the newsroom. And of course, we'll break in with anything else that's breaking that we have a stream or a source for you guys to see live news. All right, back to the Senate floor.
Hassan, Franken, Feinstein, Udall, Shaheen, Carper, Coons, Whitehouse, Kane, Van Hollen, Cortez Masto, Baldwin, Menendez, Reed, Duckworth, Manchin, Markey, Stabenow, Durbin, Wyden, Murphy, Warren, Gillibrand, Cardin, Klobuchar, Heinrich, Hirono, Booker, Peters, Warner, and Nelson as co-sponsors of this effort. I also want to extend a special thank you to my friend Senator Bob Casey of Pennsylvania. Senator Casey has been a tireless advocate for protecting the Medicaid program and the critical services that it provides, not just to the people of Pennsylvania, but to millions of Americans across our beloved country. Senator Casey has done incredible work to remind all Americans of the important role Medicaid plays in our communities and the millions of children, families, students, and seniors who have coverage through Medicaid. My motion is simple. It would send this bill back to the Finance Committee to get the consideration it never received. And it would require the committee to strike provisions that reduce or eliminate benefits for those currently eligible for Medicaid, prevent states from expanding Medicaid, or shift costs to states to cover that care. In my state of Indiana, we've seen the success of a bipartisan approach to expanding the Medicaid program and helping our fellow citizens access health insurance. I was proud to work with then Indiana Governor, now Vice President Mike Pence, when he used the Affordable Care Act to establish HIP 2.0. More than 400,000 Hoosiers have been able to access coverage through HIP 2.0, many for the first time in their lives. HIP 2.0 has helped reduce the uninsured rate in Indiana by 30%. Our Vice President called HIP 2.0, that's the Medicaid expansion in Indiana, a national model. Then Governor Pence is hardly the only Republican governor to praise the Medicaid expansion as a way to cover more of our citizens. Governor Sandoval of Nevada said just yesterday that he will continue to do all I can to protect the thousands of Nevadans whose lives are healthier and happier as a result of the expansion of Medicaid. Governor Kasich of Ohio has offered similar sentiments as he has fought to protect the Medicaid coverage for his state. And nationwide, 31 states in Washington, D.C. expanded coverage to more than 14 million Americans, many of whom have health insurance for the first time in their lives. All of that progress is at risk with the current bill. Many of our states, including Indiana, have been devastated by the opioid abuse and heroin use epidemics. This public health crisis hasn't been confined to simply one neighborhood or one economic bracket. It's been felt in communities across my state, all communities, and across our country. Vice President Pence said in his farewell address as governor that with HIP 2.0, we've made great strides expanding treatment for those who struggle in the grip of drug addiction. I agree with the Vice President. HIP 2.0 and the Medicaid expansion has made treatment and recovery services more accessible for thousands of Americans struggling with addiction as they work to get back on their feet. I don't think there's a single member of this entire body, the United States Senate, who hasn't heard from the relative of someone who's battling addiction, or from someone who's lost a loved one due to this epidemic. Gutting Medicaid and ending programs like HIP 2.0, as we know it, would not make life better for Hoosiers or for the other 14 million Americans that have gained coverage through the Medicaid expansion. It actually does the opposite. Too often this debate's been about statistics and not about the people who would be harmed. But healthcare at the end of every day is inherently personal. It's about the health and the economic well-being of our loved ones. It's about not having to go to the ER just to visit a doctor. It's about our financial security, so our families and our friends aren't one illness away from bankruptcy. The proposal before us wouldn't just impact Medicaid expansion. It would harm millions of working Americans who count on Medicaid for basic health care. It would affect more families than that, including those families who have insurance through their jobs, but also use Medicaid to access care for chronic or complex conditions. In 2015, 63% of Medicaid households had at least one full-time worker, and another 14% had part-time workers. It's almost 80%. For these hardworking Americans, Medicaid provides their family with financial security and stability, and the health care they need so they can keep working. Last month, I stood on this floor and shared the stories of Hoosiers, including those who have Medicaid themselves or to ensure that their children have the care they need. I've met with these families, heard their struggles, their fears, their pain, and listened as they pleaded with all of us here to protect their ability to access Medicaid. Many of these Hoosiers or their children are struggling with very complex medical needs that make it impossible for them to get coverage in the past, and who would be priced out of the market under this current legislation. I can't support a bill that takes care away from these families or from their children. My faith teaches me we're all God's children. Every man, woman, and child should have the chance to live up to their God-given potential. There's nothing we wouldn't do to take care of our kids. These aren't just Indiana values. These are values in every town, in every corner of our country. My faith also teaches me that we all deserve to live and work and retire with dignity. In Indiana, 62% of Hoosier nursing home residents, 62%, use Medicaid to help pay for their care. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, Medicaid supports more than 1.4 million Americans in nursing homes across our country. Their care would be threatened by this bill, which is part of why seniors groups have been so vocal in their opposition to the proposed Medicaid cuts in this bill. I've also heard from a number of school superintendents all across my state opposing the Medicaid cuts because of the harm it would have on the thousands of students across the Hoosier state. Schools use Medicaid funding for certain health-related services they provide, including individualized education plans, special transportation, for children with disabilities, social workers, physical and occupational therapists, and medical equipment at the schools. Some school districts use Medicaid to help pay for a health professional or a full-time registered nurse at schools across the country where they assist with students' complex medical needs and treat students with everything from illnesses to asthma attacks. As school districts and local governments across the country continue to make even more difficult budget choices, cutting off this critically important source of funding creates just one more huge challenge. In addition to trying to make up the lost funding, our communities and states could be impacted in other areas as well. Infrastructure, other education spending, police and fire, and other local priorities. The plan from my friends across the aisle undermines coverage for millions, but we haven't even had a hearing on their proposal. Committees haven't been able to go through regular order to examine the merits of Medicaid and the Medicaid expansion and how gutting them would harm millions of people. Children with really complex medical conditions, those struggling with substance abuse disorders, and seniors in nursing homes. All they're asking is trying to live with dignity and peace. My motion sends this bill back to the Finance Committee to ensure we are protecting those Americans who are the most vulnerable among our society. It would allow us to move towards strengthening health care for our country. If you believe we should support children and families with complex medical conditions, then you should support this motion. If you want to protect the 1.4 million seniors using Medicaid for nursing home care, then you should vote for this motion. And if you want to continue the progress we've made fighting the opioid abuse and heroin use epidemics, then I ask for your vote in this effort. I firmly believe we can improve health care and build upon the gains we have made if we work together. Together. Not as Democrats or as Republicans, but as U.S. senators and Americans in a bipartisan manner. This is not a political game. The consequences are as serious as it gets, and the American people are counting on us. I urge my colleagues to support this motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Senator from Maryland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to start by thanking my friend and our colleague, Senator Joe Donnelly, for standing up for Hoosiers, and in standing up for Hoosiers, standing up for all Americans whose health care is threatened if we continue to proceed down this very dangerous road in the United States Senate. He talked about the opioid epidemic, and just last week I met with a dad by the name of Rick Werner and the brother and the sister of a young man by the name of Jamie Werner, who had recently graduated from the University of Maryland. He was a Terp. Jamie died of an opioid overdose. He was part of the opioid epidemic that is sweeping the country. Rick Werner and his family were here in the United States Senate asking, pleading with senators, Republicans and Democrats alike, not to pass this health care bill. He had lost his son, Jamie, and he's determined that other moms and dads not lose their children to opioid overdose. And this bill, make no mistake, will make those tragedies much more likely by taking away access to care in the ways Senator Donnelly just mentioned. Mr. President, yesterday, with the tie-breaking vote of Vice President Pence, the Senate began down a very dangerous path. But we can get off that path. We can make sure we do not reach the end of that very dangerous journey. It's like yesterday we lit the fuse, and the fire is traveling down that fuse, and at the end of the fuse is the plan to totally blow up the Affordable Care Act, which will wreak havoc on our healthcare system. And that's why we have to put out the fire on that fuse right here in the United States Senate. And we have the power to do that. We have the power to prevent the chaos and harm that will be created in our healthcare system if we continue down this path. And the reality, Mr. President, we know it, is that all the healthcare plans that we've seen emerge to date, whether it was House Plan 1 or House Plan 2 or Senate Plan 1 or Senate Plan 2, or the proposal to repeal entirely the Affordable Care Act, which would cause great harm, all of them have the same rotten core. All of them have the same nasty DNA, and that's this: that they would deny access to affordable care for tens of millions of our fellow Americans in order to give tax breaks to the very powerful and the very rich, to big corporations. In fact, the proposal we're probably voting on very soon, which is entirely repealing the Affordable Care Act with no replacement, will, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, these are the referees, these are the nonpartisan referees who look at these proposals and tell the American people what the impact will be. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office has told the American people that the vote we're about to take will result in 32 million fewer of our fellow Americans having access to affordable care than today. They also tell us that we will double the health insurance premiums compared to today. And for what? And for what? They give a gigantic tax break to the wealthiest Americans. Warren Buffett, a name most Americans know, said about a month ago, for goodness sakes, I don't need a $670,000 a year tax cut in order to throw tens of millions of Americans off of affordable care. Don't do that. I don't need it. Make no mistake, this has never been about health care. It's been about wealth care. And I want people to think about this. If this were really about health care, why is it that all of the folks involved in providing health care to the American people are against it? The nurses, the doctors, the hospitals. People will hear a lot of facts and figures from senators here on the floor of the House. Some people may dismiss those numbers, but why don't we ask the people whose daily business is to take care of the American people? And what the doctors say is that all of these Republican plans violate their Hippocratic oath. What's the Hippocratic oath? It's the oath that every doctor in the country takes. And the first principle is, first, do no harm. Doctors, nurses, hospitals, they all want to make people better. They all want to cure us. They all want to improve our health situation, but their number one rule is don't make things worse. And all these bills make things much worse. That's what the numbers show us, and that's what the doctors, nurses, hospitals show us. I'd say it's much worse to have 32 million fewer Americans have access to affordable care. What about our colleagues? Don't they think that's worse? I think it's worse when you double health insurance premiums and raise the costs of health care to Americans. That sounds like it's worse to me, not better. And it's not just all the folks who provide health care. why don't we ask all of the patient advocacy groups across America about this so-called health care bill? What do they say? The American Cancer Society, bad bill. Don't pass it. Will create harm. Will be a setback in our fight against cancer. American Diabetes Association, same thing. Bad news for patients with diabetes. American Heart Association, they tell us this will be bad, harmful to people with heart disease. Alzheimer's Association. You can go down the list. Every single patient advocacy group in America that's taken a position on this bill says it's a bad bill, says it's dangerous to our health, says it will do harm. So I don't know how our Republican colleagues can continue to bring Senate Bill 1, Senate Bill 2, Senate Bill 3, you name it, before this House and call it a health care bill when all the people who provide health care to our constituents say it's harmful to their health, and when every patient advocacy group that's weighed in says it's bad for their health. How is that a health care bill? It is good for one group of Americans, those who will get a windfall tax break, but many of them, like Warren Buffett, are also saying, hey, I don't want this. Now, there's some very big corporations that are wanting their tax breaks, and yes, as corporations, they're going to get this windfall benefit at the expense of everybody else in America and the expense of our healthcare system. So let's not go down this path. And the way to avoid going down this path is to vote down all of these amendments and make sure that we don't put this bill into the House of Representatives where they've already passed a bill that's harmful to Americans' health. In fact, I think people remember that President Trump had this big celebration in the Rose Garden at the White House after the House passed that bill. They were slapping each other on the backs before the cameras. But behind closed doors, what did President Trump have to say about the House bill? Behind closed doors, he called it a mean bill. And it is a mean bill. And these Senate bills, when it comes to cuts in Medicaid that our colleague Senator Donnelly was talking about, is even meaner than the House bill. Deeper long-term cuts. Not according to me, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. Those cuts get translated into stories of people like Rick Werner, the dad I talked about at the beginning of my comments, who lost his son, Jamie. Those numbers get translated into harm to people throughout this country who've been crying out. We heard some of them in the gallery just yesterday. What'd they say? Kill the bill, don't kill us. Because the reality is that when you deny access to affordable care to millions of Americans, you are putting their lives at risk. And when you raise premiums and costs, you're putting people's livelihoods at risk. So, Mr. President, let's not go down this path. The amendment by Senator Donnelly and others will do what Senator John McCain asked us to do yesterday. Go back to the regular order. Go back to the committee process. Go back to the way this democratic institution is supposed to work, where we hear from our constituents, we hear from the doctors, we hear from the nurses. We don't cover our eyes and ears to the facts and the truth. And that open process is designed to protect the American people. It's designed to protect the American people from bills just like this one, where this Senate took that dangerous first step down the road on proposals that only 11% of the American people think is a good idea. 11%. I can't even find that 11% myself. I've gone all over the state of Maryland to those parts of our state that voted for Donald Trump as president and those that didn't. I can't find 11% in Maryland who are for this bill. And so that's why what we call the regular order around here is supposed to protect the public interest. Because when you have a committee hearing on a bill like this, and the doctors and the nurses and the hospitals all come out and testify against it, they let people know how bad it is. And instead, we've had this process in secret behind closed doors. We don't even know what the next amendments after this one that's coming up are going to be in many cases. We don't know what the Republican leader is cooking up behind closed doors. So, Mr. President, let's do what Senator McCain urged us all to do. Let's get back to the regular order. Let's get back to a process that is designed to provide transparency, because with transparency comes accountability. It lets the American public know exactly what we're doing and how we're going to impact their lives. And here's what I do know, that everybody across this country who knows about this bill, everyone I've spoken to and the phone calls we're getting, the emails we're getting, and the rallies, and the town halls, people are catching on. Why would we just steamroll over all that important public sentiment coming from all political views? American Cancer Society, they're not a Republican or Democratic organization. American Diabetes Association, they're nonpartisan. These groups are crying out and saying, stop. So, Mr. President, let's get off of this path, this very dangerous path. Let's go back to the regular order. We all know that our health care system's not perfect. We all know the Affordable Care Act's not perfect. Senator Donnelly and I and others, and many of our Republican colleagues have put forward much more narrow plans that focus on improving our health care system, not blowing it up entirely. That's the path we should take. So I hope all of our senators will agree not to continue to let that fire burn on the fuse till it gets to the end and blows up our healthcare system. Let's stop now. Let's get together. Let's have a committee process, and let's do something that really improves our healthcare system, not something that destroys it. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, guys, so we continue on here, just watching the Senate floor. Not a lot of other stuff kind of coming down today, but we're monitoring Capitol Hill. So if you're still with us, thanks for joining, guys. And little shout out to Truth, Nostalgic Soul, if you're still on the stream. We're happy to be here on this Wednesday, midweek. Some other stuff coming in. Did you guys hear about this? President Trump releasing this morning that
oh yeah,
how to
in
word
a
this.
tweet. In a tweet,
U.S. military will no longer allow transgender individuals to serve in any capacity. He announced it on Twitter. That's right. And then suddenly the stream of articles kind of coming out on that, various news sources bringing together some thoughts on that, and even, of course, we knew this. Some transgender individuals who had been in the Navy SEALs or Special Forces and whatnot are coming out to talk about this and spread their words on this, and various outlets, of course, taking these articles and going with that. So I've been kind of reading about it. There's a lot of backlash, of course.
yeah, he says that in
the tweet.
Donald Trump says in the tweet that our military must be focused on decisive and overwhelming victory and cannot be burdened with the tremendous medical costs and disruption that transgender in the military would entail. So, I mean, obviously, there's been no word as to like if that, if there are actually any additional medical costs or disruption that transgender people in the military entail, but that's President Donald Trump's reasoning and kind of backing for why he made this announcement. It was pretty surprising to come from Twitter. I mean, normally you get press conferences for something like this, but the tweeting president decided to take to Twitter for yet another thing.
It will definitely come up in, I think, in the White House press briefing today. because this is big news from today, like Cam said, the tweeting president. You can start to see the string of tweets here starting from the bottom up. And then, Cam, that's what you were reading to sort of delineate what he said and what he meant. But I guess citing medical costs and disruption. Those are the two words that will be used. I'm sure those words will be questioned today at the briefing. But that is sort of a big breaking news sort of event this morning. This happened this morning. He tweeted about around 5 hours ago. And then went on to tweet a few other things, but definitely is a talker today, and it's gonna continue to be, I believe.
Yeah, for sure.
People finding old tweets from the president as well that said, "Hey, LGBTQ community, we're with you. We side with you."
Yeah.
And that was a big thing. That's something Ivanka Trump has also tweeted out, and the president as well. So that causing a lot of disruption, a lot of contention. And
sure really kind of surprising too. Like I hadn't heard any kind of rumors or murmurings that an announcement to this effect was imminent or was even in the works or on anyone's mind. So this really kind of came out of nowhere, and it was really obviously there's plenty of backlash from this, although that's not exactly unique or original to something that our President Donald Trump posts or says or does anything with.
Right, and just to keep you up to date, the most recent tweet from the president here, referencing an old, I believe, campaign speech, which he links to here, and he says, "In America, we don't worship government, we worship God." So he linked his Instagram there, and that's the most recent from Donald Trump. So let us know what you think, guys. If you're watching, if you have thoughts.
He's a walking breaking news man,
president,
essentially.
man.
Yeah, president, even more so than any other president.
Yeah, it's been interesting, and these are always happening so fast and happening when we least expect it. We don't even know that these tweets are, like there's always some new news. So anyway, that's the newest in the tweets from the president. Also, yeah, I think that's good. I think we're still sort of monitoring, guys, here. The Senate floor looks like they're still kind of in between speakers right now. So I want to bring your attention to Rand Paul, who spoke on the floor earlier, and I really want to hear it, and I think this will be interesting. So we'll play that out for you guys. It's not too long, and then we'll come back to some other live stuff and the briefing, if we can get that on camera during the show.
Yep.
All right, guys. So Rand Paul on the Senate floor. Let's listen to him.
And they do pay taxes. They pay a fine. We pay $16 million in fines just in my state. Across America, this is happening. How did that become an American sort of legislation or plan to force people to buy stuff they don't want and then to extract money out of their paycheck if they don't do what you tell them? Ultimately, Americans should remember that Obamacare is predicated on force and coercion. Obamacare dictates what kind of insurance you can get and makes you pay a fine if you don't get what the politicians tell you you must get. President Obama basically told you you were too stupid to make your own choices. These people that want to dictate to you, they're elitists. They think they know better than you what kind of insurance you'll get. If you don't buy the insurance they dictate, they will fine you. If you don't pay the fine, they will jail you. How is that consistent with the American ideal of freedom? This debate is about more than actuarial tables. We get drugged down into this debate and we think it's all this healthcare wonkiness, this and that. It's about freedom of choice. It's about whether you as an American can make the choice whether you want insurance or don't want insurance, whether you want insurance that's really expensive or not. They put a special tax in there if you have good insurance. So first they tell you what kind of insurance to buy, then they tell you, oh, you've got too good of insurance. You're in a union or you're an executive and you have great insurance. Obamacare tells you they're going to tax you because your insurance is too good. These busybodies think they know everything about what you want. They're going to dictate what kind of insurance you can get, and then when you buy it, they're going to tell you, oh, you've got too much, so you've got to pay a tax. That isn't the American way. Today we will vote on a bill we voted on many times. The Senate itself voted on this 2 years ago. It's the identical bill. We're going to vote on a bill we voted 2 years ago, and I hope everybody that voted for it before will vote for it again. It's what we call a clean repeal. It's not cluttered with insurance company bailouts. It's not cluttered with this and that, new federal regulations. It is just trying to peel back Obamacare. Now, while it is a clean repeal, it is only a partial repeal. Why? It's only a partial repeal because we have these arcane Senate rules that say we can't repeal the whole thing. Because we're only repealing part of it, Obamacare will remain. Even if we're successful with this bill, at least half or more of Obamacare remains. Bad things remain. All of the mandates on what you have to purchase on your insurance will remain. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do this. The other side does not want to help. The other side has never met a regulation they want to repeal and has never met a tax they want to lower. So if you want to get rid of the taxes, it has to be done today. Now, people say, well, this doesn't have the replacement. Well, sure, we should replace Obamacare. I've been advocating that from the beginning. But we have to figure out what that replacement is. And the only way we're going to be forced into a bipartisan compromise is if we repeal it. If we do not repeal it today, there is no impetus for either side to work on replacing it. If you repeal it, even the other side will say, oh my goodness, we have to do something because they repealed these subsidies and this Medicaid expansion. So they would say, we will work with you now. But everything else is false. They will not work on repealing one regulation or one tax. That heavy lift is left to Republicans. And my hope is that Republicans would band together and say, sure, this isn't everything I wanted. It's not everything I want. It's a partial repeal. It leaves in place a lot of Obamacare that we should get rid of. And we should continue to try to get rid of these federal mandates on insurance. But this is a beginning. And it's all we're being offered up as a beginning. But it is a victory for those of us in America who said, enough's enough. My government shouldn't be telling me what I can buy and what I cannot buy. My government should not tell me which doctor I can choose and which doctor I have to leave behind. The government should not be involved in my healthcare business. I want to be left alone. The right to privacy, the right to be left alone is a fundamental right of Americans. That's what this is about. It's about freedom of choice. It is not about actuarial tables. It is not about federal government designing the perfect health care system. The federal government cannot deliver the mail. All right, they lose $1 billion a quarter delivering your mail. Do you want them in charge of your doctor? Do you want them in charge of your insurance? This is the one chance we get today. We will have a chance to repeal Obamacare. We will have a chance to fulfill our promise to the American voter. Now, there is a partisan divide. Democrats are for keeping it. Republicans are for repealing it. But Republicans made a promise. We made a promise to the American people to repeal it. Now, there may be some Republicans today who say, I'm not voting to repeal any longer. Things have changed. The problem is that we're not going to get towards the solution if we don't begin to repeal. The other thing about this repeal is there's a 2-year window in which part of the repeal doesn't take place for 2 years. Over that 2 years, my guess is we will have impetus from the other side to actually begin to negotiate. Currently, there are 27 million people in America without insurance. You would think from all the talk that Obamacare's covered everybody and somehow Republicans are against that. Well, count me as one Republican that wants to figure out how we insure the 27 million who don't have insurance. Of the 27 million people who don't have insurance under Obamacare, half of them don't buy insurance because it's too expensive. Why is it too expensive? Because Obamacare dictates about 15 different things that every insurance policy's got to have. Vision, hearing, pregnancy, you name it, it's all on there. Should everybody want it? Yeah, everybody wants it. But if you put it on every insurance policy, not everybody's going to be able to afford it. So you force people out of the market. 27 million people don't have insurance, and half of them say they can't get it because it's too expensive. Where is the problem in insurance? If you are here today visiting in Washington and you work for Toyota or Ford or General Motors or any big American company, any big corporation in our country, if you work for them, my guess is you're not worried about your wife getting sick and they fire you from your job or raise your rates. What happens when you have group insurance is if your family member gets sick, you don't lose your job, your insurance rates really don't change, and you continue on with your life. You still have the tragedy to deal with of someone in your family being sick, but if you have group insurance, it seems to work in our country. So what we're talking about is the individual insurance market. We're talking about the plumber, the pest control guy, the carpenter, the welder, the farmer, people who are in a small business. Either they have a few employees or it's just them. That's what we're talking about. And it is horribly broken. I don't wish it on any American. I wish no American had to buy any insurance in the individual market. In fact, what I'm proposing would so disrupt the individual market that maybe everyone would leave. I'm trying to give an exit ramp to everybody in the individual market to get the hell out of the individual market, because the individual market is a terrible place to be. If you are a farmer in America and you buy insurance for you and your wife gets breast cancer, you are not only deathly afraid for her health, you are deathly afraid your insurance rates will be doubled, tripled, or you will be dropped. I don't care whether you're a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat. People in the individual market do worry. We've had people here worried that people are going to lose their health insurance. The individual market is a terrible place to be. So what should we do? Should we give like hundreds of billions of dollars to the insurance company and say, please insure these people and make sure their rates aren't too high? Well, I don't like that because I'm not for crony capitalism. These companies make billions of dollars a year in profit. I'm not for giving them 1 penny of your money. But you know what I want? I want something that doesn't cost anything. Doesn't cost 1 penny and would completely transform healthcare and insurance in this country. I want to legalize. I want to make it open to every American that you can go out with an association across state lines and buy your insurance as part of a group. What would that mean? In my state, the Farm Bureau has 33,000 people. But when you go to the Farm Bureau to buy your insurance, you get an individual policy. The farmer and his wife and their family get a policy. It's just them. Well, they're not really protected by the group. They don't get the leverage of price, and they're not protected. If they get sick, their rates are based on them and their family. Why don't we let them join together? Why don't we let all the farmers in the country? There's probably 1 million farmers in the Farm Bureau throughout, the American Farm Bureau. What if the American Farm Bureau had an association and one person negotiated for them? I don't think we can overstate the negotiating value of a group. In China recently, they negotiated for patented medicines and they reduced the price by 67%. Groups can negotiate prices down. This is a free market reform. This is collective bargaining for consumers. I can't see why either side. I'm still hopeful, no matter where this goes, that at some point in time when partisan fervor dies down, that we can go to the other side and say, what's so wrong with collective bargaining? I thought you were for collective bargaining for labor. Why not be for collective bargaining for consumers? Let the consumers band together. AARP has 33 million people. What if one person negotiated the rate for their insurance and their drugs? My guess is they would have the lowest drug prices in the world and more people would want to join AARP. What if the credit unions, there's about 20 million people in credit unions, maybe more, across the United States. What if you could join your credit union, you became part of a national association to buy your insurance? The leverage of 20 million people would be maybe 40, 50 times bigger than America's biggest corporation. So right now, if you're with General Motors and you're a big corporation, you have leverage to bring your prices down. What if you were in a corporation 20 times bigger than General Motors, an association that negotiated your prices? This was freedom, though. This isn't a government plan. This is the federal government saying you're allowed to do what you want. You're allowed to collectively bargain as consumers. I think there is every chance we could fix a lot of the market. Would there be anybody left behind? Yeah, I mean, we have terrible tragedies. I spent my adult career in medicine. I've seen the terrible tragedies, the terrible disabilities, the terrible neurologic disorders that people are born with and have to live their lives with. Those exceptions will be treated and are treated. And frankly, one of the misunderstandings of this debate is that any Republican is up here talking about trying to take away stuff from those who are disabled, who can't work, and do have to have care. That's traditional Medicaid. And they will continue to be cared for. Under this, we're only talking about able-bodied people. Should able-bodied people, should people who walk around, hop out of their truck, should they be working? Should they be providing for their health insurance? Yes. Can there be a transition zone? Yeah, we have transition kind of programs.
Hi guys, just cutting in here from inside the digital newsroom. We're going to switch it up for you guys because we have some other breaking stuff coming out of DC. Now, we were just telling you about the White House press briefing that's coming up very shortly, slated to start at 2 o'clock. You're looking right now inside that room where we're finally back on camera for the first time in a bit, minus when they announced Sarah Huckabee Sanders as the new press secretary. So they're all gearing up for that, but also concurrently right now, we're going to go over to this. Find it pretty interesting because we were just talking about this. A press conference is coming up next with Nancy Pelosi. I'm going to bring you over there. And one other, I want to say Congressman Joe Kennedy also will be speaking about a response to President Trump's tweets, the ones we were just talking about. That's the podium setup right there. This will be really interesting to hear.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I mean, I think that that's certainly controversial, certainly divisive, you know, so hearing the response, just, you know, maybe another reason, another instance for the Democrats to kind of sound off about something. So I'm excited.
Yeah, definitely. This hopefully will start shortly. We'll kind of bring you both at the same time, or, you know, switch back and forth. We'll figure it out. But both live events right now from inside our digital news desk. And we don't know when these White House press briefings will start. We've seen them kind of delay and come late, but we're going to hope to get
so hopefully two, but it could be anywhere.
And it looks like, exactly, it looks like the press is ready. That's a live look inside. They're on time. They're there. I believe our Ronica Cleary from Fox 5 here in DC is also there. She's covering that today. But it looks like they are still setting up for this press conference here. We just flashed over to it. This is in DC. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi will be speaking in response to President Trump's tweets from earlier this morning when he said transgenders will no longer be allowed to serve in the military.
Well, the press is always ready. It's never
right.
It's never the press's fault when things are backed up. But
the press. But
you know, it's hopefully going to be in roughly 5 minutes, 6 minutes that we get this White House press briefing, but you never really know for sure.
Yeah, and we'll double box this shot so you guys can remember what was tweeted out today, because this is the press conference in reference to that, and then we'll see when this is all going to begin. Going to keep an eye on these feeds, guys, and we'll come back to you very shortly with more as these start up.
Hey, how are you? Yep. Oh, thank you so much for doing it. So we've got travel. Oh my God.
Testing.
Okay, they're speaking? Yeah. Huh? Alright, I'm gonna go take photos and stuff. Okay.
Did they realize this time?
Hey guys, we're just checking in from the newsroom here. You're looking at a picture of President Trump's tweets this morning prohibiting transgender individuals from serving in the military in any capacity. You can kind of see that, and we're going to get reaction to that from Nancy Pelosi and Congressman Joe Kennedy in a little bit. Also going on right now, we're setting up for the White House press briefing. So these are two things happening at the same time. I'd like to bring them both to you, but we're going to play it by ear and kind of see what comes in when. If White House briefing had started exactly on time, we could have taken that Reddit too, but
of course it didn't, because it never would.
It never does. So we're going to kind of play it and see. I'd like to be able to bring both. They're both very interesting topics, all happening right now in the 2 o'clock hour live here in Washington. So a lot of politics today. We've been following it, and it'll be really interesting to see this reaction to President Trump's tweets. and also to get those questions answered of the press to Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I'm sure she'll get a lot on this topic. So both very interesting things, guys. We're going to see what comes up first. For now, you're looking at this setup for what is going to be this press conference here with Nancy Pelosi. But we're also inside the White House press briefing room. We can see the cameras just kind of getting ready. I'll flash you over there. That is gearing up to happen too. You can see some of the reporters doing their live shots as well. So let's keep an eye on both, and then we'll take you whichever one comes first.
Yep, whichever one's there, we'll make sure we throw you right to it.
All right, guys, checking in with you here. We'll be back in just a little bit.
Yeah, we're coming over on this side.
Do they have an order here? I don't see any. Roddy might have an update.
I'll get Roddy.
You think so?
Hi, everyone.
They will get it'll be this is the center, so if we can have everyone kind of center around us, around me, the royal us. I can stand behind. The board. Mr. Kennedy is coming over to get us started.
Mad Leader, how are you?
Hey, Leader. They can't speak legal. All right. Thank you all. For those we had an RSVP from, there's a speaking list. You can pass it to them, or whoever's just, get past the next person.
We want to stick to the
as
list
we go.
there,
Stick to the list
If the person's not
as
there,
much
we
as
skip.
possible.
If the person's not there, we skip.
But there's also a row.
It's on the down.
No, I don't. Hi. Let me go.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Right. It's true.
Joe, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Number 9. No, that's great. And then, speaking order, everybody is up on the podium, whoever's speaking, just yield to the next person. All right? Thank you all for coming. To my colleagues, members of the community that are gathered here, to my colleagues and to everybody gathered here today, grateful for your presence and grateful for your voices. Ladies and gentlemen, our troops do not discriminate. Today, the President of the United States told thousands of American service members that though they will lay down their lives for us, that we will not fight for them. And that as they defend our freedoms, many of which we take for granted every single day, we will not offer them the most basic freedom in return: the ability to be true to yourself. The President dared to question the patriotism of our military. And in doing so, he questioned our nation's greatest strength, its greatness and its goodness. But more than that, with a haphazard and hateful policy shift, he has threatened not only the livelihoods of thousands of service members and their families around the world, but called into question some of our deepest values as well. And he didn't even have the courage to look them in the eye when he did it. Hidden inside a house that they give life and limb to defend, he attacked their humanity and their basic human rights. To every single transgender man and woman in our military, and our shores, and well beyond. Please know that we will never take your service, your courage, your patriotism for granted. You deserve better from your president, from your country, and from your government than what you have seen today. I'm honored to be here and to be joined by Jessica Gervin and her daughter Blue. Her husband, active duty member of our military based overseas. Their daughter has been denied treatment that she needs, a little girl, so that she can grow up to be the fantastic young woman that we know she can be. She's here today asking members of Congress to try to make sure that she can get the medical treatment that she needs, that has been denied to her by the commander on that base. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to yield time to an extraordinary leader for our country and equality around the world, Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you, Congressman Kennedy, for your great leadership of the Transgender Equality Caucus and for your wonderful words today. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for introducing us to Blue and her mom, Jessica. Thank you, Blue, for your courage. We're honored by your presence. As we are honored by Chad Griffin and Mara Kiesling for their ongoing leadership again and again. I'm honored to be here with all of my colleagues and to remind the President of the United States that on this day, this very day, in 1948, President Truman signed the executive order desegregating the U.S. military. Here we are, 69 years later, President Trump has chosen this day to commit an act of cowardice. The cowardly act, the way he did it, and especially what he did. On this day, to unleash a vile, hateful agenda that will blindside thousands of patriotic Americans already serving with honor and bravery. It is a cruel and arbitrary decision designed to humiliate transgender Americans who have stepped forward to serve and defend our country. The President's allegations of tremendous medical cost are a bold-faced lie and a ludicrous pretense for his hateful campaign against these brave men and women in uniform and those who have become veterans. A study commissioned by the Department of Defense found, my colleagues, that the cost of providing medically necessary care to be very small. In fact, every year, the Pentagon spends 5 times more on Viagra than it does for transition-related care. 5 times more on Viagra. This morning's tweets reveal a president with no respect for the courageous men and women who risk their lives to defend our freedoms. This disgusting ban will weaken our military and land that it defends. This is not about strengthening our country. Once again, President Trump has shown his conduct is driven not by honor, decency, or national security, but by raw prejudice. And they've even said they thought this was a political advantage for them. So this is a dark day for thousands of heroes in our military, but it's a dark day for all of us, for our entire country. And with that, I'm honored to bring to the podium a person whose leadership I have respected for a long time. She is the Executive Director of the National Center on Transgender Equality, Mara Kiesling.
Thank you so much, Leader Pelosi. The President of the United States announced this morning that he is planning to blow 15,000 holes in American military readiness. It is an absolute disgrace. It is a shame. It is unpatriotic, and it is cowardly. I am the executive director of the National Center for Transgender Equality, but I am also an American, and this is my country. The 13,000 to 15,000 service members who are transgender are Americans. They are proud Americans who are serving their country, and they woke up to see the President of the United States this morning, without apparently consulting with even the Pentagon, with even his own generals, slitting their throats. This is unconscionable. It is bad military policy. It is bad foreign policy. It is bad domestic policy. It is bad humanity. We cannot run a country with policy that's done by whim and tweet. These are amazing service members who have been studied for years by the military. They have determined this is not going to be any kind of a distraction to have transgender service members. In fact, during the last year since it's been allowed, there have been no distractions. The first disruption, the first distraction was today by the distractor-in-chief. We don't know why he is doing this. He must have some either political or petty motive. But you do not do this to the American military. You do not do this to 15,000 service members. And his excuse about medical service, about medical treatment and what it costs, I will say this, and I will say it very clearly. We as Americans never have and never should tell service members they cannot have medical treatment that their military doctors say they need, period. This is wrong. It is stupid. It is unpatriotic. Somebody at the Pentagon or in Congress needs to talk to the president and talk him out of this nonsense. We are so heartened today to see so many Republican United States senators issuing statements about how wrong this is. We hope somebody can bring him to his senses. I am so thankful for Representative Kennedy, Leader Pelosi, and all of the members of Congress here who understand what a threat this is to our country, not just to transgender people, but to our country. The President of the United States this morning announced he is blowing 15,000 holes in our military readiness. Thank you very much. I apologize. Next, Congressman Jared Polis.
Thank you. Thank you, Mara. Today, because of President Trump's announcement, America will be less safe. Nearly 15,000 transgender individuals bravely serving in the military, rather than being judged on their merits or their ability or the need for them in the field, are being judged simply on their gender identity and being removed from the military. This new policy, apparently crafted without thoughtful input and through a few tweets, frankly, is an assault on the U.S. military and reduces our military readiness. Our military service should be about defending our freedom, not a mechanism to deny Americans our freedom. And transgender Americans, like any American, should be able to serve our nation wearing our uniform to the full extent of their merits and abilities. The units and service members who rely on their transgender teammates are now faced with uncertainty about the future, possible holes in our readiness, and holes in our cohesive units that have formed and trained so hard, where each and every member of those teams are essential for our mission's success. And when transgender service members are supposed to be focusing on their missions, now they're grappled with questions about their own future in the military today and tomorrow. It's a dangerous world, and we can't afford to weaken our military by kicking out high-performing service members just because of their gender identity. I'm proud to stand with Representative Kennedy, our Equality Caucus, and so many others here today, because for transgender service members, as for all transgender individuals, please know that we here are with you. You are respected and appreciated. Your contributions to the defense of our country are appreciated, and know that we are fighting for you. We're now joined by Representative Joe Crowley, the chair of the Democratic Caucus.
Thank you, Jared. We've come so far as a nation. We're better than this. This is not reflective of who we are. The test that everyone in our military needs to go through is whether or not they can do the job. Can they take that hill? That is the test of the men and women in our armed services today. What the president is doing, he's not uplifting, he is demoralizing the men and women in our armed services. That is in effect what the president has done today. But we as a nation are better than that. And our nation needs to take back this hill, to send the message to this president that this intolerance, this attack upon the marginalized, this attack, and they're not weak, but it's a message to the weak, to the marginalized, to those who find themselves a little bit outside the pale, that they're not wanted. And that is not the message of our country. It's not the message of our caucus. It's not the message of the people who stand behind me. And Democrats and Republicans together are saying, this is not our America. I'm so proud of our caucus. I'm proud of Joe Kennedy and all of his work, and our leader Pelosi and their statements. But this really goes to the heart of who we are as Americans. My son, just yesterday, took the oath to defend our nation against enemies, foreign and domestic. It's a solemn vow. And that's exactly what these men and women are doing as well, taking that oath. Who are we to question? If they can pass the test, if they can make the grade, they should be given a chance to do the job. With that, I will call upon Chad Griffin. Chad?
Thank you so much. Today, Donald Trump has proven himself to be as unpatriotic as he is unfit to serve as Commander-in-Chief. By announcing via Twitter a ban on transgender military service, he has launched an all-out assault on the LGBTQ community and put a target on the backs of more than 15,000 transgender troops proudly serving in our military today. This disgusting action endangers the lives of American service members, undermines military readiness, and makes our country less safe. It's the latest effort by Donald Trump and Mike Pence to undo our progress and to drag LGBTQ people back into the closet. When the Pentagon lifted the ban on transgender service under the Obama administration, study after study found no reason transgender Americans could not serve their country. On Tuesday, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mike Mullen, said that discriminating against transgender service members threatens to harm our readiness and our troop morale. But as he often does, Trump ignored the facts, he ignored the generals, and he ignored reality. This is part of a pattern of erratic and unstable behavior by a president who appears increasingly isolated, disturbed, and incapable of taking action in the best interest of the country when there is the slightest opportunity for cynical political gain. He's attacked Muslims, he's attacked immigrants, women, people with disabilities, people of color. He has attacked us all. And make no mistake, Donald Trump, a man who received 5 draft deferments during the Vietnam War, is using the lives of American service members as political pawns. There are more than 15,000 transgender service members and thousands more trans veterans who have done more to serve their country than Donald Trump has his entire life. Today, the Commander-in-Chief attacks them all. And when this president attacks one of us, as you see here today, he is going to keep hearing from all of us. Thank you. It's now my pleasure to bring to the podium Representative Sean Patrick Maloney.
Hey, Sean Patrick. Well, thank you all for being here. Look, real quick. Today, a president who never served is attacking thousands of heroes who do. And with a single tweet, the president has left thousands of our heroes on the battlefield of discrimination. It's wrong that the president has become more extreme on this issue than the Republican-controlled Congress, which just days ago joined with all Democrats to say no to discrimination against LGBT service members once again. it's wrong that the president is now more extreme on this issue than John McCain, than Richard Shelby, than Joni Ernst. What have we come to when the president of the United States doesn't listen to the military heroes in his own political party and ignores the men and women who are serving right now, today? Maybe he should talk to Kristen Beck, who's a transgender woman who was a member of SEAL Team 6 and who served in Afghanistan and Iraq. Maybe the president should talk to Riley Dosh, a young woman who just graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point, who's being denied a commission in the Army after we all invested for 4 years in her training and expertise, who has passed every test to join our military and yet is being arbitrarily denied that right. Why? And to the thousands of men and women in the United States military today who are wondering whether they fit, whether they're going to be allowed to continue their service, I want to apologize to you on behalf of your government. You deserve a lot better than this. And all I can tell you is, I don't know how long it's going to take, but love is going to win. In the end, love is going to win. And we've been here before. We've been here before. And we've heard about readiness when African Americans were willing to serve and being denied that right. And we heard about health issues and medical costs when women were being denied the right to serve equally. We have heard every tired discriminatory argument before. And they have always fallen away over time in the face of reason and decency and equality. Love is going to win. I don't know how long it's going to take. And I'm getting tired of fighting this fight when we've already got a majority on the floor of the United States House of Representatives, when we've got the leading conservative military hero in the Senate saying it's unnecessary. And yet somehow we've got a man in the White House who still prefers discrimination to inclusion. Love is going to win. And love is love. And hate is hate is hate is hate is hate is hate is hate. And no right to believe anything can be derived from it. Hang in there. We will win this fight one day, I promise you.
Mr. Walls. Well, thank you all, and thank you to my colleagues and everyone who's standing on the right side of history and in alignment with our American values. Our brave transgender troops serving this great nation are not a burden nor a distraction. They're American patriots. They volunteered to put their lives on the line for our freedom, and their service should be welcomed, celebrated, respected, and honored. After 24 years of service as an enlisted soldier, I know a little bit about what it takes to build cohesive teams to accomplish our mission. And as Mr. Maloney so clearly pointed out, this president who has not served a single day knows nothing about those things. The men and women who serve our nation have made our military the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen. They meet the challenges we ask of them every single day, from protecting our homeland to hunting down terrorists who seek to do us harms to all ends of the earth. The one challenge they should not have to face is facing down a discriminatory, bigoted commander-in-chief when they come home. This announcement is clear that the indication the president fails to understand a very fundamental truth about our military. Our troops are capable professionals who will carry out any mission this nation requires. The Department of Defense already has a plan to ensure that all those who want to serve our nation can. All of us know this is a superficial, simplistic distraction because of the president's other problems, so he tried to pick what he felt were the most vulnerable to drive another wedge amongst them. As Mr. Maloney said, that tactic has never worked in this country, and it never will. This group standing here will ensure that. It's heartbreaking, and the leader pointed this out, that on a day of celebration of our nation moving forward, correcting the ills of the past, on this anniversary date of President Truman's historic desegregation of the military, that the president chose this day. If I thought there was more competency there, I would have thought they maybe have did that on purpose, but it was probably sheer bigotry that led them to that. But our nation's done this before. We faced this down and prevailed. Mr. Maloney's right. There's a fierce sense of urgency for every troop. Each and every one of us have already received calls to our office by heroes who are serving, who deployed in the face of great danger, serving this nation, doing everything right, now want to know if their careers are done as of today. We as a nation, this is one of those moments that we get to stand in the breach of making a choice in the direction that we go. These policies, as I said, have never done it before. It's time to put this to rest. Brave Americans who wish to serve this nation should be allowed to do so, should be respected, and certainly should never expect to have an attack on their basic patriotisms or their basic humanity come from the White House. It's our pledge here to make sure that doesn't happen. Thank you, and I'll be followed by Mr. Pocan from Wisconsin.
Thank you. Very glad to be here as one of the co-chairs of the Equality Caucus. First, let me say how proud I am of our leadership and all of our members. Look how many people turned out today because they too are outraged by this decision by the president. So I just want to thank all of my colleagues for that. I associate myself with all the remarks that have been said. And let me just add this challenge to Donald Trump. Donald Trump, be enough of a man to talk to a woman like Kristen Beck. Kristen Beck has a military career of over 20 years in the Navy with Navy SEAL Teams 1, 5, and Elite 6, deployed 13 times over 2 decades, including stints in Bosnia, Iraq, and Afghanistan, received the Bronze Star Award for Valor and the Purple Heart Award for wounds suffered in combat. Talk to Kristen Beck. Talk to my former constituent, Sherry Swakowski, who retired out of the Army as a colonel, a high-level position. Talk to those military heroes about their records and compare it to your military record of zeros. This is a draft dodger who is now dodging the military service of thousands and thousands of people in this military, and it is completely without any respect or regard for every single person who serves this country with honor and respect, including those members who are transgender. And I'd like to add, within the hour, the Rules Committee at 3 o'clock, Scott Peters, who couldn't be here, has an amendment up that would say no dollars in the military omnibus bill that's going to be before us can be used to support the ban on transgender service. So hopefully we'll get a chance to have every single member of Congress be held accountable on this issue. But I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here today. I know in the long run we will win on this, but right now it's a sad day when you have a president who does something as incredibly off as this. And with that, I'd like to introduce the next person who not only is a member of Congress, but has been someone who's served us so aptly in the military. And I noticed he took off his very stylish sunglasses, Ruben Gallego.
Thank you. As a young man, I was lucky enough to serve United States Marine Corps in infantry platoon. And let me tell you, if somebody was taken out of my team all of a sudden because of some stupid tweet, I would be really ticked off. This is not how you run the military. You do not dictate military policy through tweets or through whims. It's called a DOD directive. That's what pros do. There's a reason why Secretary Mattis did not issue this. There's a reason why no general decided to talk about this, because it's embarrassing and it's dumb. The idea that the president is using the United States military right now to distract from his utter lack of leadership and the fact that he's totally impotent when it comes to actually getting his projects done and his legislation done. And now what he needs to do is go and pick and bully on some of our greatest Americans. It's disgusting. It is un-American. And to add it worse, just the idea that a draft dodger, somebody who dodged his commitment to serve his country, who also then bragged about and said that his Vietnam was avoiding STDs in the 70s and 80s, then to turn around and tell these young men and women that have said they will sacrifice, they are willing to sacrifice, that they are no longer accepted. It is disgusting. It is hypocritical. And like the leader said, it is outright cowardice. This president is acting like a coward, unlike the men and women that are trying to serve who are not. Please join us, call your senators, call your members of Congress, and demand that we protect our 15,000 veterans and current military personnel and reverse this really dumb decision. Thank you. Next up, my pleasure to introduce Representative Lee.
Thank you very much. Let me thank all of my colleagues, Congressman Joe Kennedy especially, and everyone for your tremendous leadership. I have to just say a couple of things. First of all, I want to be clear. Trans service members are not a disruption. That's the first thing. Secondly, they are brave individuals serving our country with courage and conviction, which is more than what I can say, quite frankly, about this commander-in-chief. Much more. Trump's dangerous and unpatriotic decision to reinstate a ban on transgender people serving in the military is reprehensible. This un-American policy places a target on the backs of transgender troops and attempts to force them back into the closet. But we are here today to send a message loud and clear, not on our watch, not on our watch. President Trump, Vice President Pence, and the entire administration are seeking to roll back decades of progress on LGBT equality. Their agenda undermines our core values as a nation and sends a signal that hatred and discrimination have a place in the United States of America. But nothing could be further from the truth. Now let me just say, as I close, my father served in a segregated unit during World War II. I've seen the pain caused by discrimination in the armed forces. I've felt it. 69 years ago, President Truman ordered the integration of the armed forces, affirming that there shall be equality of treatment and opportunity for all. And this means all persons. That means everyone. That means everyone. That's who we are as a nation. But I hope that the president listens to what we're saying today and rescinds this horrible directive. But more than that, I hope today that he, in addition to rescinding this measure, I hope that he apologizes. I hope he apologizes to the transgender community and to the entire United States of America. He owes us an apology. Thank you again. Thank you. Let me now bring up our representative from Michigan, Representative Kildee. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all, and I'll be brief. A lot's been said. I want to add my voice. Donald Trump exercised in an almost uncanny way his incredible cowardice by hiding behind a tweet to discriminate against Americans who are willing to put on the uniform of their country and put their lives at risk. This is the act of a coward, and this is the act of an ignorant person, and he ought to be ashamed of himself. Of course, this is a man who has no shame. A person who gives a warm embrace to his personal hero, Vladimir Putin, and then insults Americans who are willing to put their lives at risk to defend their fellow Americans is a person who is unfit to be the commander-in-chief. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Let me now bring up a leader on issues of equality and justice, somebody who came to Congress at the same time I did, Congressman Mark Takano.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, we talk a lot about courage here in Washington, D.C., but let me tell you what really takes courage. It takes courage to own your own identity, knowing there are people in your life that will not accept who you are. It takes courage. It takes courage to volunteer for the United States military, knowing that we are a nation at war. And it takes courage to put on the military uniform on every day, knowing that you are risking your life for a country that you love. It does not take courage to go on Twitter and score political points by insulting thousands.
So guys, we've been listening to this for quite a bit. Pretty interesting to hear about this. This obviously was just planned today because these tweets came out this morning, and more follow from this, of course, on our evening shows tonight into the night, and definitely tomorrow morning. They'll be talking about this for a while.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It came out out of the blue, kind of.
Oh, totally out of the blue. I mean, as I said, we're not sure how much really planning or anything went into this.
Yeah. All right, guys. We're seeing that the White House press briefing is finally starting, and looks like Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos is now up to the podium. Sarah Huckabee Sanders will come back and answer some questions for the press. So let's jump over inside the White House press briefing room.
High quality education. He and I have had many conversations about how best to put students' needs first and ensure we are setting them up for a lifetime of success. There's much work to be done, but we are certainly on the right track thanks to the President's leadership. Just yesterday, Ivanka Trump and I hosted a summer reading event at the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, where the focus was on getting young girls, aged 6 to 10, excited about learning science, technology, engineering, and math. It was fun to see their eyes light up as they got to explore, create, and experiment in a collaborative environment. Today's and tomorrow's economy requires students prepared for STEM careers. That's why we've decided to use the President's second quarter salary to host a STEM-focused camp for students at the Department of Education. We want to encourage as many children as possible to explore STEM fields in the hope that many develop a passion for these fields. We look forward to this exciting endeavor, and I thank President Trump again for this generous gift. Thanks.
Thank you, Secretary DeVos. Thank you for coming and being here for that today. Now, I know Anthony's probably a little bit disappointed that he's not up here today, but since he did some TV this morning, he was able to go ahead and get his hair and makeup done, so I think he'll be okay. As Anthony said when he was up here last week, we're looking to mix things up a little bit. From time to time, I'd like to give us all a little reminder of why we're here every day, which I imagine for most of us is because we love our country and want to make it better. I've spent a lot of time around the president over the last year, and I know exactly why he's here. He's tough, he's a fighter, he's a strong leader, and he's somebody who deeply loves this country. And he loves its people, and he wants to make America great again. In Washington, it's often easy to go to work, get lost in the process, and forget why we're here every day. The reason we're here is to serve the American people. And today, I'd like for you to indulge me and let me tell you a little bit about what that means for me. To the best of my knowledge, I'm the first mom to hold the job of the White House press secretary. That says less about me than it does about this president. It's not just with personnel, it's about people and it's about policy. Empowering working moms is the heart of the president's agenda, particularly when it comes to things like tax reform. I have 3 children, and the oldest, Scarlett, starts kindergarten in a few weeks. Scarlett and every little girl in America should grow up in a country that if we deliver on the president's agenda of better jobs, better health care, and a better tax system, that incentivizes women to work and raise children. As a working mom, it's not lost on me what a great honor and what a privilege it is to stand here at the podium, and I thank the president for the opportunity. I'll always do my absolute best to truthfully answer your questions and deliver the president's message. Jonathan, I'll preempt you from asking that question later. But I also hope to send my daughter a message, and to every other kid in America, don't listen to the critics, dream big, and fulfill your potential, because in this country you still can. To remind us a little bit more often about some of the forgotten men, women, and children that we're here to serve and that the president is fighting for, we're going to start the White House briefing every once in a while with a letter or an email that we may receive from some of those individuals. To kick it off with that process, I'd like to read you a letter from 9-year-old Dylan. My name is Dylan Harbin, but everybody calls me Pickle. I'm 9 years old and you're my favorite president. I like you so much that I had a birthday about you. My cake was the shape of your hat. And then Dylan goes on to ask a few questions. How old are you? Dylan, President Trump is 71 years old. How big is the White House? The White House is 168 feet long. It's 70 feet tall on the south side and 60 feet 4 inches tall on the north. And it takes 300 gallons of white paint to cover the exterior of the White House residence. It has 132 rooms and approximately 55,000 square feet. How much money do you have? Dylan, I'm not sure, but I know it's a lot. I don't know why people don't like you. Me either, Dylan. You seem really nice. Can we be friends? I'm happy to say that I directly spoke to the president, Dylan, and he would be more than happy to be your friend. My picture is in here, so if you can, see me and say hello. Dylan, I hope you're watching because the president wanted me to personally tell you hello. Your friend, Dylan. Dylan, thanks for writing to the president, and if you're ever in Washington, D.C., I hope you'll stop by and let us show you around the White House. And with that, I'll take your questions. Steve.
Sarah, Jeff Sessions was here today. What was he doing here? Did he meet with the president? And what does the president think about the conservatives who are rallying behind Jeff Sessions, saying he's essential to staying in his office?
The Attorney General was here for other meetings, not with the president. It was a principals committee meeting, and did not see the president while he was here. I think the president's been very clear about where he is. He's obviously disappointed, but also wants the Attorney General to continue to focus on the things that the Attorney General does. He wants him to lead the Department of Justice. He wants to do that strongly. He wants him to focus on things like immigration, leaks, and a number of other issues, and I think that's what his focus is at this point.
If the Attorney General launches a leak probe, would that help his status with the president?
I don't think that's the nature of the relationship. Again, I think that the president is disappointed. He stated that, and I don't think there's anything more to add beyond that at this point.
Sarah, thank you. A couple of questions about the new policy on transgender service members the president announced this morning. First, what happens to transgender service members now? Are they immediately thrown out of the military?
That's something that the Department of Defense and the White House will have to work together as implementation takes place and is done so lawfully.
So it's possible, because I see that, I mean, the president was pretty clear in his tweet that transgender individuals, he will not accept or allow a transgender individual to serve in any capacity. So does that mean that those that are now in theater, that are now deployed to Afghanistan, for example, will have to be immediately sent home and
Again,
discharged?
the implementation policy is going to be something that the White House and the Department of Defense have to work together to lawfully determine. And, I would imagine the Department of Defense will be the lead on that and keep you posted as that takes place.
Why did he decide to do this, given that during the campaign he had declared that he would protect the rights of transgender individuals? He said he would be better on this issue than Hillary Clinton, and now he's turned the clock back on this issue regarding the military.
The president has a lot of support for all Americans and certainly wants to protect all Americans at all times. The president's expressed concern since this Obama policy came into effect, but he's also voiced that this is a very expensive and disruptive policy, and based on consultation that he's had with his national security team, came to the conclusion that it erodes military readiness and unit cohesion, and made the decision based on that. Kevin.
Thank you, Sarah. If I could follow up on what Jonathan just said, that the president actually tweeted, "Thank you to the LGBT community. I will fight for you while Hillary brings in more people that will threaten your freedoms and beliefs." And so I'm wondering, you said the policy, the president in general wants to protect all Americans. Does this shift in policy protect transgender Americans, and what is the message that he is attempting to send to them by making this shift in policy? And if I could follow on healthcare.
Let me answer that first question, then we'll come back to healthcare. On that, the decision is based on a military decision. It's not meant to be anything more than that, and it's simply about, obviously, it's a very difficult decision. It's not a simple one, but the president feels that it's the best one for the military.
Okay, on healthcare, then, if I could follow really quickly, can you repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act and still protect Medicaid funding? We're talking about the most dependent among us, and the need for Medicaid is great, and that seems to be a major concern among some lawmakers, including Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski. So I'm wondering, from the president's perspective, if congressional lawmakers do send him a repeal that does not protect Medicaid funding, is that something he would still support? And what is he doing to try to protect Medicaid as it is now?
The president's been clear that he wants to protect those that are part of that program, but also very focused on repealing and replacing. We're working through that process, excited about the progress that was made yesterday, and we're going to continue pushing forward until we get a new and better healthcare plan. Francesca?
Thank you, Sarah. One short thing and then questions. Can you provide us with a copy of the letter that you write? Maybe even hold it up or just
Sure.
read a copy to us?
I'll be
Okay.
happy to.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Knock out Dylan's name, last name.
Yes,
Be
thank
happy
you.
to provide it to you.
But back on Attorney General Jeff Sessions, you said that he didn't meet with the president when he was at the White House this week. Has he spoken to the president this week? Do you know when the last time the two of them spoke was?
I don't believe they've spoken this week. I'm not sure on the time frame.
Okay, and then another follow-up on Jeff Sessions. You said
Always
that the president, you said that the president has been very clear about his position on Jeff Sessions, and yesterday the president said that he wasn't leaving him to, quote, twist in the wind. But he continued to tweet about him this morning. If he is so frustrated and so disappointed in him, why doesn't he just ask him to resign or fire him? Why does he continue to just tweet about him instead?
Look, you can be disappointed in someone but still want them to continue to do their job. and that's where they are.
Continue in that job?
I think that I made clear last week, if there comes a point he doesn't, he'll make that decision. Like,
Thank you. Let me have you please clarify, if you can, some comments that the president made in the Wall Street Journal interview yesterday about tax reform. He said, and I quote here, "The truth is the people I care most about are the middle-income people in this country who have gotten this," he says, "screwed. And if there's upward revision, it's going to be on high-income people." On that upward revision part, what exactly was the president talking about? Is it a revision from his plan on the personal side at 35%, or is it revising it up from the current tax code?
Yeah, when we get ready to walk through the full details of the plan, I'm happy to do that at that time. But right now, we're focused on the three big priorities of the tax reform: a simple, fairer tax code, middle-class relief, and creating jobs. That's where we are right now. We're continuing to work through that process, and we'll make announcements as we have specifics.
Let me just ask you then a more general question on that. Does the president believe that the wealthiest Americans deserve a tax cut?
I think the president is looking and prioritizing middle-class tax relief. He's made no secret about that. That's one of the biggest priorities of the three things that he's focused on when it comes to tax reform. Jordan?
Thanks, Sarah. Two questions for you. First, the president has had almost 24 hours to review the Russia sanctions legislation. Has he decided if he's going to sign that?
Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Senator Corker actually came out earlier today and said that he's not fully supportive of where the bill stands. We expect that there's a possibility that more changes take place, and so we're going to see what that looks like before we make a final decision. But I can tell you that the White House, the president, and the entire administration, as we've said many times before, strongly support sanctions against Russia, Iran, and North Korea.
My second question is the president considering looking at any kind of policy about transgender people serving in the White House now that he's tried to make a decision on transgender people serving in the military?
No, once again, this was a decision based on what was best for the military and military cohesion, and on the counsel of his national security team. Go ahead, Major.
So the impression we get at the Pentagon is they were a little bit flat-footed by the president's tweets. And as I understand it, this was and has been for the last couple of weeks a conversation here, specifically about TRICARE coverage for transgender procedures, and it suddenly evolved for the president to then go on Twitter to announce this ban. And as you already told us, the White House and the Pentagon are going to have to lawfully implement that. Typically, when you have an announcement of this magnitude, all of that work has been done at the procedural level between the bureaucracy of the Pentagon and the White House. Why wasn't any of that work done, and why was the Pentagon caught so surprised this morning by the president's tweets on that?
Yeah, as I said before, that the president's national security team was part of this consultation. You mentioned yourself that there have been ongoing conversations. When the president made when the president made the decision yesterday, the Secretary of Defense was immediately informed, as were the rest of the national security team that had been part of this ongoing conversation.
But you can't answer the question of what's going to happen to transgenders who are in the military now. Shouldn't you have been able to answer that basic question with a policy of this magnitude?
Look, I think sometimes you have to make decisions, and once he made a decision, he didn't feel it was necessary to hold that decision, and they're going to work together with the Department of Defense to lawfully implement it.
Okay, one last thing on Sessions, just because this is the baseline question. You said earlier the president was frustrated. Is that frustration now in the past? And does he fully have confidence in the Attorney General to carry out his duties from this day forward?
The president wants the Attorney General to focus on his duties as Attorney General, and I think we've both spoken about that pretty extensively, and I don't have anything else to add. Peter?
As you just announced, the president's donating a second quarter salary of $100,000 to the Department of Education, so clearly he must care about education. Why then is he calling for $9.2 billion in spending cuts to the Department of Education in the next budget?
Look, I think that oftentimes you have a lot of duplicative efforts, and they want to streamline the process. And we simply have a government that's completely out of control when it comes to spending. We have an outrageous deficit, and we're looking to make things that we have a balanced budget in the next 10 years. The president campaigned on it. He's committed to seeing it through, but he's also committed to education, as you can see by his own personal commitment, and looking for ways that we can save and continue on to make education better, passing some of that decision-making down to more local and state control, and something we're certainly supportive of.
Quickly on transgender, just a quick follow-up. In June of 2016, in the heat of the campaign, he wrote, "Thank you to the LGBT community. I will fight for you." Did the president today just betray his commitment to the transgender community?
No, as I answered before, this was a decision about military readiness, and I've already answered even to that specific tweet.
You say to the transgender community that he is still committed to fight for them, and how is this not fighting for them?
I think the president has made very clear he's committed to fighting for all Americans.
All Americans?
No, go ahead.
Sarah, thank you very much, Sarah. Was this decision on transgender in the military made to put pressure on Democrats running in 2018, particularly Democrats running in socially conservative districts like in Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin?
Not that I'm aware of.
Just to follow up on that, what is the timeline for when guidance will be delivered to the Pentagon and how the president's decision should be implemented?
We'll let you know when we have an announcement. Peter.
Sarah, the president said this morning, or tweeted this morning, asking why the Attorney General has not fired Andrew McCabe as acting FBI director. Why hasn't the president fired Andrew McCabe as acting FBI director?
The president's made an incredible nominee in Chris Wray, and he's looking forward to getting him confirmed and taking over the FBI.
He needs to fire. Why should Attorney General Sessions fire him?
Again, he's made a choice to lead that agency, and we're looking forward to getting him confirmed soon. April.
Sarah, two questions. One, following up on Major with TRICARE and the transgender community. There's been a concern from the transgender community before President Trump became President Trump that if Obamacare changed to Trump care, they were wondering if they were able to get the procedures to help them complete their phases of becoming the other sex or the other gender. What do you say to those people who are seeing this now with this ban in the military? What do you say to transgender America who wants to continue with the change? Maybe some who already had part of the change and want to do the change and are scared because of what's happening now, not for certain. What do you say to transgender America?
As I've said before, and I'll try to make this clear, this was a military decision. This was about military readiness. This was about unit cohesion. This was about resources within the military and nothing more. Guys, I really don't have anything else to add on that topic. As I do, I'll keep you posted. But if those are the only questions we have, I'm going to call it a day. But if we have questions on other topics, I'll be happy to take it.
Sarah, I want to know. I'm sorry, Sarah, I wanted to finish. Everyone had a second question. I'm sorry, Sarah. On the morale of the cabinet, Anthony Scaramucci this morning on New Day said that the cabinet secretaries need to have tough skin. How is the president working with the cabinet secretaries right now? How does he build their morale after all of this with Sessions and we're hearing things that are coming out of state about Rex Tillerson? How is the president working on their morale?
I think the same way he works with all of us. He empowers us to do our jobs. And I don't think it matters whether you're a cabinet secretary or a low-level staffer. We're here to do a job. He's asked us to do it, and he expects us to get it done. And I've spent a good bit of time with quite a few cabinet secretaries over the last couple of days, and morale is high. Stephen.
One more point about transgender service members, not here in this country, but overseas. And there are 18 countries where transgender service members are allowed to serve openly. The UK is one, Australia is another, Israel is a third. The president in his tweet this morning referred to disruptions. What does he mean? And is he concerned that there are disruptions in our allies' militaries in Australia and the UK and Israel? And should we worry about that from a military standpoint?
As I said earlier, this decision was made after extensive discussions with his national security team, and the president decided it was in the best interest of the military to end this Obama policy. I can't speak to anything about another country. Pretty focused on making sure we get good things happening here. Zeke.
First off, you were talking earlier about what the president wishes Attorney General Sessions to be doing in his job right now. Why hasn't the president picked up the phone or invited him over when he was into the Oval Office when he was in the building? Does the president have any intention of speaking with the Attorney General this week?
I'll keep you posted if he does. John?
Second question on the transgender service member issue. You mentioned this is the president reached this decision to improve or maintain unit cohesion. How does it maintain or improve unit cohesion to leave thousands of service members, some who may be overseas, serving in units overseas, in the dark about their status within the military?
Once again, this was a decision made after the consultation with his national security team and decided the best decision. Alex.
I want to ask you about a tweet the president had on Sunday. He said,
It's very sad that Republicans, even some that were carried over the line on my back, do very little to protect their president. Which Republicans is the president talking about, and what would he like to see from them? What sort of protecting?
I'm not going to call out any senators by name up here today, but I think the president is very committed to a robust agenda and changing America for the better. And Republicans have both the House and Senate. He's hoping they'll join him in pushing forward a lot of the policies that most of those people campaigned on, like repealing and replacing Obamacare. I think that's a perfect example of Republicans needing to step up to commitments that they made during the campaign and since being elected and get those things done. Guys, I hate to cut it short. The president's got an event, as I know you can all hear by all of the cheering children. I hope that we can join together in welcoming the boys and girls from the Girls Nation. Thanks, guys.
Is there anything new about the policies the president would consider leaving in place?
All right, guys, with that, White House press briefing, we got it on camera. We get to see both things, the presser with Nancy Pelosi about this very same topic that we were hearing a lot about, or a lot of questions about, the transgender
Yeah,
tweets.
I mean, that's definitely the news of the day. It caught everyone by surprise this morning, and now with the Democrats' presser just a second ago, it's them sounding off on it.
Yep.
And now here, the press secretary, the first opportunity for maybe questions, a little more insight into the process that both went into making that decision and maybe the fallout and the outcome afterwards. Exactly.
Right. A lot of interesting stuff. We're sort of dancing around certain questions, not a lot of details on how it will be implemented and when. And then there was even a point where she was sort of like, I'll take other questions. If not, I'm going to end this. So that'll create a little bit, I think, of slight controversy. We'll probably be hearing about this throughout the afternoon into the evening, definitely on our evening shows as well and into the morning. And if we have updates regarding this, we'll bring them to our show tomorrow and kind of see what we got from here. So now you can see reporters setting up for their live shots. But with that, guys, we're almost nearing 3 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to roll out the show and see you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. as usual. So thanks so much for joining our stream. Thanks for the comments. And let us know what you think. And we'll see you tomorrow at 11. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you like it. We'll see you tomorrow. You'll get that alert on your phone for when we go up with live and breaking news. Always different every day. And we're happy to be here in the Digital News Desk.
Yep, we're now 60% of the way through the week. Only 2 more
yeah,
days to go.
Nice. All right, so Thursday, tomorrow, we'll see you on the same show. Take care, guys. Have a good one. We'll leave you with a shot of the White House today.